everyone. We got Sandra somewhere, or is she? Right. Well, we're at 1 o'clock, so is there any apologies? Obviously, Councillor Stewart for lateness. Conflicts of interest to be recorded.
Speed limit stuff, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so a few acknowledgements. Firstly, excuse me, we've got 3 obituaries of former community board and board members who've passed away between our last meeting and over the Christmas period. So firstly, Warwick Resgen, who was a former member of the Ringura Advisory Board, 2004 to 2010. Ian Reid, a former member of the Ashley Air Advisory Group and Hust Water Advisory Group. And Giles Beaglehole, who's a former member of a number of local Ringura groups, including the Ringura Advisory Group, 2004 to 2007. Chair of the Northbrook Wetland Advisory Group and Ringura Museum Committee and the Keep Ringura Beautiful Group. So those 3 members have made a significant contribution to our community over the years. It would be appropriate for us to stand and observe a moment's silence out of respect for them. Thank you. Struggling with my glasses that are fogging, and then I can't see when I take them off. So,
Mr. Mayor, just under acknowledgements, we also had a young lad from Kaiwa who walked the length of the country. I just wouldn't mind the council, if they don't mind, acknowledging her achievement from the bottom of the south to the top of the north.
It's very suitable. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a name on the tip of my tongue, but it's just disappeared off my tongue.
If you remember, pass it on to Kay or...
Yeah, I will do it.
Also, under 3.2 New Year's Honour, Peter Simpson, who's a resident of Woodend, was awarded the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to education. Some of you may remember Peter was long-term principal of Belfast School. He was on the foundation board and chair for Te Mata Uru, and has actually given extensively to education over the years for a number of programs. So we were approached and wrote a letter of support for his honour, and it was great to see that he was acknowledged. His wife Adrian is the principal of Woodend School, so it was nice to acknowledge that. Also like to acknowledge at the weekend Blackbell's department store finally able to celebrate their 150th anniversary. They had been trying for a number of, I think Andrew mentioned 3 occasions, excuse me, but there were a number of councillors that were present and chair of the community board. It's just sad that then overnight Sutton Tools unfortunately had the devastating fire, so just wanted to mention our thoughts to the employees and obviously the business owners down there for that devastating loss, and hopefully they can get back on their feet in not too distant future. I'd like to also just acknowledge, I went on Thursday to the museum's fur fangs and something opening that they had in there. Well, this is a book that was written by James Ryan, who's aged, you may have seen it in the paper, who's aged 12 from Sefton School. It's an absolutely outstanding piece of work. He spoke at the opening and it was really fantastic. He's gone in there and done a lot of research, but to have published a book at the age of 12 is something quite amazing, and he's from a district. They were going to try and do a launch here at the library, but it's not working out as easily, so I thought I'd mention him today. I got a signed copy which was fantastic, so I'll hand that round to you all, but a very bright and enthusiastic young student at age 12, so I'll pass that around and you may wish to have a look at that at some particular point. I think the name for what Neville mentioned before is Emma Timms, I think was the Greek name. All right, so they're the acknowledgements, unless there's anything anyone else wants to acknowledge. We come to the confirmation of minutes, which are pages 17 to 50 in the agenda. Someone prepared to move there's a true correct record. That's Councillor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Blackie. I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare those carried. We also have minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the Council on the 10th of December, pages 51 to 53, moved by Councillor Milling, seconded by Councillor Redmond. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Is there any matters arising from those minutes? And we'll deal with item 4.3 when we're in public excluded. We've now got kind of deputations and presentations, and firstly we've got 5.1, which is Carlos and Lauren Cazanis. Excuse me for the pronunciation. Carlos, you're most welcome to come forward to our table now, and you're going to present your views on Skew Bridge road speed limits. So welcome to our table, up 10 minutes, and within that time there may be a couple of questions from colleagues. So thank you for your time, and you've worked out the speaker system and pressing the buttons, yes. So that's really great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, councillors, for your time spent in consideration of this request. I know you're very busy, and with things like this big fire down in Kaiapoi on the weekend, you've got lots on your hands. So thank you very much for taking the thoughts and considerations of residents on Skew Bridge and Flaxton Road into consideration at this time. My wife and I are resident at 150 Skew Bridge Road. We've been living there since 2011. The section of road that I'm talking about is from the Rangiora side of the Skew Bridge, where the speed limit changes from 80 to 100 kilometres. The long straight that is in the direction of Rangiora, there are two large bends, and then there's a long straight that heads along Flaxton Road. The road changes name without any, you're not on a different road, you're on the same stretch of road, to the 80 kilometre zone that is on Flaxton Road, just north of Camel Park. So in recent years, all of the compound improvements have been fantastic in our district. A commuter from Rangiora can make it to the corner of Innes Road and Cranford Street without a single traffic light. However, the consequences of all this is that Skew Bridge and Flaxton Roads are being treated as a motorway, which they're not. And I sincerely appeal to you all to do the sensible thing and to reduce the speed along that road in the interest of safety for the residents and the road users. The timeline of why I'm here, my wife and I and family moved to the North Island for a couple of years for work. We arrived back at the beginning of last year, and like people do when they've been away for a long time, or even on a long holiday, you look at the gate that wants mending and think, oh, why haven't I done that? And you go and fix it. But we looked at, we sensed this increase in traffic, and we thought, was it like this before we left? Surely, maybe we'd got used to it. At any rate, not long after we got back, some friends from Christchurch who are unfamiliar with the area were nearly rear-ended attempting to come onto our property. And we started asking a few questions, and we noticed how the road around the Silverstream subdivision had been improved in our absence. And at any rate, we considered some of the places that we'd seen in the North Island are not dissimilar to Rangiora, in particular Cambridge and the Waikato, which is topographically similar. They're completely reliant on the ditches for the drainage of the primeval swamps to make the land inhabitable. And the roads system that they've got there, which is a legacy, probably similar age to Skew and Flaxton roads, that are bound by ditches and lampposts and what have you, and they're not motorways, and lots of crosses on the road, similar to the Skew Road, Flaxton Road bend, and lots of double yellow lines and 80k zones, and thought, maybe we should sort of think about doing something. So we wrote an email to Mayor Gordon on the 23rd of March, and had a phone call with Councillor Blackie, the representative of our ward. In this email, we went to explain who we were, how long we'd lived there, that when really happy to see all the positive changes in North Canterbury since we've been away. There's positive changes of population growth and increasing industry and so forth, and we're not Luddites, we're not anti-progress, that we sort of don't feel that comfortable pulling out of our driveway and going onto the road in case there's some person overtaking someone else along this long stretch. As you come off these improved motorways that our district benefits from on the south side of the Waimakariri Bridge, and people driving home, and thought, we're only talking about 3k of road, of which about 600 metres of it is a series of bends that you can't really speed around anyway. If you do, you'll end up, as Graham Stevenson has reported to the council on multiple occasions, your car in the ditch or upside down or through one of his fences there. And so really, 3 kilometres minus about 600 metres is, 2,400 metres, and a quick maths, and if you reduce the speed limit from 80 to 100, and from 100 to 80, sorry, and follow the rules, that would mean 20 seconds extra one way to your trip, and I don't really think that 20 seconds per commuter voyage is going to make this living in Rangiora West less appealing, or be an impairment to growth or the general enjoyment of living out here. So at any rate, Mayor Gordon, through his staff, arranged to come visit our property on the 22nd of April, and with other council staff. I unfortunately wasn't present. I just started a new position. I had to go away for work, but my wife was there, and this occurred at 5:30 in the evening, Thursday evening I believe it was, so busy time, and there was about 35 residents of Skewbridge and Flatston roads, including people from Camel Park and from Malcox Road, representing about 20 households, and they all explained what their experiences were and answered some questions in a very cordial meeting by all accounts. I spoke then on 17th of May to the Kaiapoi Tuhiwi board and explained the same thing of this observations. And then after the lockdown, I participated in a video and interview for the Let's Talk public consultation. In the past 2 months, I believe Graham Stevenson has notified staff member Kathy Graham of one car on its roof and 2 cars through his fence that might not have been notified to the police, and therefore evidence that could be used for a statistical or expert analysis of safety or unsafety of the stretch of road. At any rate, there's also, due to population increase, a lot more people using the road taking debris and rubbish to the Southbrook transfer station. And on the periodic clean-outs of the ditch, we find lumps of wood and tyres and things like this. And the compounding progress is such a good thing for the district, but for those roads, they made them not as safe, I believe, and as do the other residents that attended on the 22nd of April when the Mayor came to visit. So to the extent that, you know, my son's not interested in getting a driver's licence, that's his prerogative, and I don't think that's a major one, but there's a young fellow that the rest of his friends are getting their licence, but he doesn't want to pull out onto that road. So that's really it in a nutshell. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carlos. There may be some questions, so any questions? Councillor Redmond.
Thank you for coming along, Carlos. Two things. Firstly, do you reverse out of your driveway, or are you able to turn on site and drive out your driveway?
We drive the car out with the engine or bonnet ahead of us. So yeah, we drive out. We don't reverse out. We drive out.
Would you say that speed or the volume of traffic, which would be your main concern?
Combination of both, especially the overtaking of vehicles that are already doing at or near speed limit is the major one.
You mentioned the speed limit was 100 k's. You'd be aware that that's a limited speed zone from the bridge towards Rangiora?
I believe that from...
It's got the circular sign with the black.
Yes, so that's 100 kilometre an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Barr.
Thank you for your really clear submission. It's very good to hear. In your experience of the cars that have ended up having crashes, were they doing the speed limit or were they doing more than the speed limit?
Oh, well, I wouldn't know.
No idea.
We hear the things we've heard: motorbikes, vehicles, high revving. You know.
So it's poor driver behaviour.
Yeah, I mean it's driver behaviour, but it's you know, I'm not a transport engineer, but I think a common sense point of view is with the increased number of commuters, especially.
Yeah.
That it looks like and it's treated like a motorway, but that it's not a motorway. And when vehicles do come off, they're generally, you know, high consequence traffic incidences rather than whoops.
Yeah. And you mentioned the issue with turning into your property. Would improving the road shoulders alleviate that factor?
Well, I mean, no doubt, yes. But I mean, we indicate plenty in advance, and you know, we get people giving us the fingers, and you know, like we've caused them a considerable displeasure. But you know, we as residents, we drive as safely as we can, and that means, you know, at our property we maintain a pull-off areas on both sides of the road with gravel, so that you're not pulling onto grass and all of this. And we never pull any of this just sopping on the road and then indicating to go in. Never. We always get off on. But it compared to 2011 or 12, when that road went all through by the Kaipoi Cemetery and predated West Rangiora completely, where there was fields, open fields. That road, you know, I think it was tar sealed in the 60s, early 60s. It hasn't changed. It was designed for a population that is, you know, in a yearbook somewhere, not this population.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Carlos. Would you feel safer if we reduced the speed down that road to 80 kilometres an hour?
Yes, I would. I don't want to get hit by someone doing 80. Preferred not to get hit by someone at all. But just in a layman's, you know, whatever the, you know. impact forces, velocity times mass or whatever, I don't know. But I think from a layman's point of view, I'd far rather get hit by a car doing 80. And I think that if there are cars overtaking someone doing 80, they will be doing 100. They won't be doing 120 or whatever it is. We never see speed cameras down there either. I'm sure there'd be a good place to probably put some, but that's not the... Yeah.
Well, there's not going to be any further questions. Carlos, can I say thank you on behalf of the Council for taking the time to present to us today, also writing, and both Councillor Williams and myself both attended that meeting with other residents, and it was insightful and helpful to us, as has been your presentation today. We've got next Mr. Jim Gerard. I just was going to let you know we've got Jim Gerard who's next, but you're welcome to stay and listen to Jim's presentation. I'm going to take the agenda items around speed next after Mr. Gerard. So you'd be most welcome to stay and listen to that if you wished. If you choose not to, it is recorded audio live stream, so you can watch that from the comfort of your home later if you choose. But I just wanted to let you know what options you have if you want to stay and listen to the conversation. So
I greatly appreciate your hospitality.
You're most welcome. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time. Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Jim Gerard, the Chair of the Ringaroa Community Board. Thank you for coming along today, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here just to talk very briefly about the board's decision on the speeds in these areas. I'm not here to debate the issues with you. I'll leave that to your wisdom. But from a board perspective, we were pleased with the thoroughness of the consultation, the public consultation. We thought the staff reports were excellent and covered the issues, and so did their answers to questions. The board were supportive of the recommendation that came to you with 3 exceptions. Councillors Barnett and Williams voted against it, and so did board member Wells, who interestingly neither spoke nor asked a question, so I couldn't tell you why he was opposed. But really the main opposition was about the speed on the Flaxton Road, the Fernside Road and the Mount Thomas Road. Well, I won't elaborate too much on the Flaxton Road. You've heard plenty from Carlos, except to observe the changes to that road in the last 12 months. It has now become a major exit from Rangiora to Christchurch. I use it all the time because of the blockage at Lineside going through Southbrook. At peak hours, it's just bedlam through there, and that's a much quicker way. So more and more people are using that on Townsend, Fernside, Flaxton. And I agree with Carlos, if you only need to speak, and he mentioned Graham Stevenson, you only need to talk to him to really know the chaos that's happening on that road. There are so many close goes, and it's all about speed in my view. The other opposition, of course, was to Fernside, and in particular, Fernside staff told us that it's a regular hotspot now for accidents. You'll be aware of the major crossings, Layman's Road and Plasketts. Well, they've been dealt with. That doesn't stop the traffic still screaming up and stopping at the last moment. In fact, I understand from what staff said that intersections in rural areas in the review being reviewed contributed to 15 serious and fatal accidents in the last 10 years. That's very, very high. The Mount Thomas Road, well, I really discount that because the mean speed on that road is 70 to 74 on the staff report, and it's been recommended for 80, so that's well below that at any rate, so it shouldn't be an issue. Look, I think the best way to sum it up, and I will be very disappointed if council stays where it is and doesn't support the board's view, because it's all about road safety. None of us like speed restrictions. I don't. I used to be quite a mad driver. I probably still am. But the fact of the matter is, speed kills. And It's worth noting that the speed restrictions are becoming the norm wherever you go. I've just been around northern Southland and central when many of the roads now are 80 k's where there is narrowness or not wide straight roads. So speed restrictions are the norm. Due to high death rates on the road, it's the only way to protect other road users. Morris Harris, who is a farmer, I noted with some amusement reading your minutes that Kirsten said she was now, sorry, Councillor Bunnett, now a rural councillor. Well, I don't see what that has to do with it. Interestingly, you might recognise that two of our board members are existing farmers. They both supported the change. The chair farmed for 40 years. He supported the change. I think the best way to sum it up is to quote you Morris Harris, an eminently sensible farmer on the main road to Oxford from Rangiora. He said he reluctantly supported the motion. He noted that accidents were generally caused by driver error and not often had a lot to do with roads. However, speed reductions was the only way to reduce the damage during an accident. He commented it was the way forward. I'll leave it at that, other than to say I am disappointed as a community board chair that the council have chosen to ignore a board recommendation. It makes you wonder, quite honestly, what the point of having community boards is if they don't get their recommendations listened to, particularly when it involves the safety of others. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Jarrett. We appreciate your presentation. Is there any questions? Councillor Barnett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jared. That's very, very succinct and interesting feedback from the board. What I'd like to ask you is, changing the speed limit without enforcement, do you believe that will change the driver behaviour on this road?
I think it'll help. I mean, enforcement's not a matter for the councils, that's a matter for the ministry. And it's an impossible job for them. You'd be better to talk to one of your colleagues who's an expert in that field. Just because you have more traffic officers on the road, it doesn't mean traffic necessarily slows. It does slow when someone blinks their lights at you till there's a cop sitting down the road. But no, people speed because the road seems okay to them. They don't understand that a tractor can come out a gateway, a kid coming on a rural road can come out on a horse or a pony, and accidents happen. You've had examples of that at Finside quite recently.
Thanks, Jim. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand. Sorry, yep.
Mr. Jared, I'm just interested in your comment about voting against community board. Is the council assumed that it should rubber stamp everything the community board puts across its table?
No, I think that's an interesting question, and this is not the first time that I've experienced a council not agreeing with a community board. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got community boards that are liaison between the community and the council, they are close to their communities, they live in the area, they know what is happening, they know about the hoons on this road or the hoons on that road, and council in its wisdom has given them a responsibility and put them in place. So if you're going to have elected bodies, you need to take notice of them. And, and in fact, I believe they should have more delegations, but that's another issue.
So you're suggesting this council isn't taking notice?
I don't know. I'll find out later on as to whether you are or not.
I don't think we should get into that debate. It's a point that was raised in deputation. You may wish to pick that up and debate yourself, Councillor Atkinson. Is there any other questions? Councillor Ward, yes, a question?
My question would be, would it be possible for you to please to acknowledge that as a Rangiora Ashley Committee Board and Councillor, I have always approved of
thank you. Again, a debating point that you can pick up and debate yourself, Councillor Ward. Thank you. I don't think there's any further questions. Sorry, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Gerard, for coming along and giving us your thoughts. Would you support proposal to upgrade Flaxton Skew Bridge Road to reflect its new role as a major arterial given the increased volume of traffic?
Well, I support any upgrading of a road that brings greater safety for the motorists on them, and Skew Bridge and Skew Bridge area, of course I'd support an upgrade there. Can't believe anyone wouldn't.
Okay. Thank you. You indicating a question there, Councillor Bryan?
I know I cleared a conflict, but it's Mr. Gerard, you and I've served for a long time, you as Mayor and as Councillor. I've been here 21 years, you've been out here nearly as long in various forms. With regard to community boards, would you be surprised to know that in that period there have been 5 occasions where I voted against the numerous hundreds of recommendations from advisory boards and community, that there have been 5 occasions?
I think you've made your point, Councillor Bryan.
Thank you,
and,
Mr. Mayor.
it's a debating point, and in the event you don't need to respond to that, Mr. Gerard.
No.
Thank you. Look, Jim, so can we say thank you for presenting the board's view here today and the points you've made. You're welcome to remain for the debate if you wish.
Thank you.
And we're going to go into that shortly. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerard. All right, so we're now going to come to agenda business 6.1, which is Kaipoi Tuhiwi ward area speed limits. Now, following our workshop this morning, we have rearranged the agenda slightly to, when I say rearrange, realign the agenda in line with some of the questions that members had and preferences around how we deal with the speed limit. So we'll just take a minute for you to get those. Thanks, Kelly. I had to remind myself what we have actually done here just for a second. Okay, so you'll have the items in front of you, and so perhaps I just describe how we're going to go through those. So firstly, we're going to deal with 6.1 first, and so table 1, table 2, so A and B, table 1, table 2, table 3, and then D, E and F we will deal with as one. Table 4 will be taken separately as per conversation this morning around those particular measures. Table 8.1, we'll go through those when we come to that, but you'll note that the Skew Bridge area will be treated separately, as table 7, and table 6 we will take those items, those roads separately as indicated this morning. But we'll decided better to put Flaxton Skew Bridge in one table rather than, because it does cover partially 2 ward areas, but actually it's better to deal with it as one as opposed to multiple agendas, because it just gets confusing, not only for me, but as Chair, I'm sure it is for you. So does that broadly make sense to you all? We've had good conversation on this topic, and we've heard the deputations that have been in presentations before us. So before we come to the item, I'd just like to see if Joanne or Ellie can acknowledge all your work, Ellie, which has been extraordinary. So thank you, and thank you for picking this up with our staff after our briefing this morning so quickly. There's some, by the way, there's maps here as well, team, that were asked for. So hopefully that gives a bit more clarity about how that looks. They were in our agendas, but I appreciate it's much easier to see one in front of you than one on the screen. I sit in that category myself. So Joanne or Ellie, if there's anything you would like to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, we have worked through this issue of the speed limits on a number of occasions and also at the briefing this morning. And these recommendations are in line with some, hopefully, further information to help the decision-making process. So, nothing else from me.
Is there any questions of staff? Okay, well, I'm going to test the meeting with the recommendation 6.1. So A, B, Table 1, Table 2, Table 3, and D, E and F. Do I have a seconder for that? And we'll deal with, as I say, C with Table 4 separately.
Mr. Mayor, I just wonder whether we can move A separately.
I'm happy to take that. Oh, okay, all right. Do you want me to take it now or take that? Well, firstly, let's do A. So, taking A. So that's moved and seconded by myself and Councillor Ward. Do you wish? I was going to hold my discussion to the rest. Any points I had? Any further speakers to point A? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Then we'll take item B. So it's table 1, 2, 3, and then D, E and F. Moving that, do you wish to second that, Councillor Ward? Okay, or it doesn't matter who that does, so Councillor Ward. So just in speaking to this briefly, I think we've extensively looked at the topic of speed limits. It's been through an extensive process that has already been outlined. There was a briefing to portfolio holders, councillor briefings, community board briefings and decisions, council decision to consult, community consultation, then back to boards, then to council before Christmas, and now the message hasn't changed through that time. And it's well, it is around road safety. There were a number of proposals that were put up first that, you know, through testing that with elected members, they were reduced significantly about where some of those changes were originally proposed. Not all, I'll be honest, not all I feel totally comfortable myself, but the reality is that when you look at the advice we get from our staff, the feedback we've had from our community. I went to the meeting that Carlos mentioned earlier. There were some pretty impassioned people very concerned about their safety. Graham and his wife Ellie that were there were virtually in tears with what they have seen on their particular property and who they've helped out of ditches and other things. And it was quite compelling when you listen to that. I chair the Regional Road Safety Committee. I know the message that goes regionally and the number of incidences that are occurring, and there is, we're trying to get an alignment of messaging right throughout Canterbury, right throughout New Zealand about road safety. The current message from government is Road to Zero, and it's the one we are working to. If we can make these changes and it saves a life, then that to me is worth my vote here today. I heard Jared and how many lives have died since he's been in the role, and I found that quite a compelling case. Actually, I hadn't reflected exactly that statistic here in our district, as well as the information our Chief Executive shared with us with his experience previously with being with NZTA. Just picking up a point of question that I think came from Councillor Redmond around the Flaxton Skew Bridge and road safety. That area is a priority for us. We are arguing with the, not arguing, putting forward strongly the case for their investment on the Skew Bridge because it desperately does need to happen. Unfortunately, it's not sitting in their priority, but that doesn't mean that we give up on that argument and putting that forward. Because you do take your life in your hands sometimes when you go across there with large vehicles. So speed reduction through that area assists. I've been in those properties and I certainly understand. But the other points, we've made them well on these points. So they're just the comments I wanted to make. Is there any further speakers? Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ward?
Yes, I think it's really important that as we grow, we have more traffic on the road and there's more people coming and going. We have to regulate and assist with those people that are living in the area so that they can exit and get home safely. And also, I will also say, the Lehmans Road, the Flaxton Road, has really increased since the congestion on Southbrook Road as soon as possible, because that will also take a lot of the traffic on the eastern side of Rangiora, which is currently using Lehmans Road, Flaxton Road, instead of Southbrook Lineside Road. It will take them directly on the eastern side to Lineside Road, and it will save a lot of congestion and a lot of traffic on Flaxton Road. So I will be advocating to be bringing that forward as soon as possible, because I think that's really urgent, as well as the Skew Bridge.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I am supporting these three tables on the agenda. I do have some concerns about Flaxton Road going down to 60 as a major arterial heading to the rural areas. However, it's a short space of time, short space of road, so I guess that can be managed. However, I refer you all to the feedback from the community on page 161 of today's agenda. We have over 50% of our community on many of these roads actually against the speed limits that we are proposing today. That was reflected in the big debate at the Rangiora Ashley Community Board, where members were really divided over which way to go on certain roads. Overall, many of these roads do need a reduction, particularly unsealed roads. I actually support the reduction to 60k on all the unsealed roads. However, some of these roads that have been designated in the council planning documents as major arterial routes to move residents from A to B and are zoned rural or industrial do not seem to justify dropping to lower speed limits. And the Rangiora Ashley Community Board were concerned that if we drop speed limits down to lower in certain areas, it will push traffic back onto the 100-kilometre road, Lineside Road, and lead to extra congestion in the Southbrook area, which we have been trying to avoid. Many members were not quite sure how to express this in the debate and spoke to me after the meeting, unfortunately, since the resolution was passed. So the feedback from our community has been divided on this. On the Kaiapoi one, I'm willing to support all unsealed roads, absolutely, because I can see danger travelling over 60 on some of those gravel roads that we are unable to maintain to a standard that would allow you to do 80 kilometres an hour, because we do not have enough funding to do so. However, I am still very uncomfortable with supporting the Fernside Flaxton Road area, as these are major arterial roads that are essential for our community to get both freight, people, commuting traffic, to actually increase the economy of our district.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Atkinson, followed by Councillor Williams.
Well, I wasn't going to speak, but I've taken into consideration what all community boards have said about all of our roads all the way through, and individual members and people that I talk to in the community. And it is fair to say that our consultation reflects what people are telling me. I will be voting against all of these because I think there are much better mitigations. We talked about time and how retraining drivers, all of those types of things, would take time to come through. Well, let me assure you that outside my place has been 50k for the last 38 years. And I can also assure you, since there's a roundabout in there, a safety measure, that the noise and speed from there is hopeless. It's worse than it ever was, because there's no enforcement. I'd love to see the rural roads and our policemen using their resources to sit in the back of Mount Thomas Road there on a single road, waiting for the farmer to come down in his tractor exceeding 60 k's. I mean, it's just not going to happen. The realities are that driver inattention, driver's failings, yes, speed will contribute to what happens in the crash, but what I tried to allude to before is the amount of accidents that happen in our country, not in our district, in our country, that are where people break the rules. They are not due to getting halfway on the road with an 80-kilometre sign or 60-kilometre sign. They are due to the people breaking the rules. That will not change with a red and white sign with a black number in the middle of it. I tend to vote against the whole thing.
Thank you. Further speakers? Sorry, Councillor Williams, yes.
Yes, well, I support most of these. Some of these I don't. But I like opinion on, you've got Flaxton Road.
So are you speaking or are you asking a question?
I was actually going to, hopefully the staff might be able to ask a
Okay,
question.
so you would like to ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so please ask your question.
Yeah, you've got 80 k's up to Camel Drive. Would that be not the more sensible, and you want a Camel Drive to be 60 kilometres all the way through there, bring the 60 kilometres from the roundabout?
Can I just say that we're not, so you're dealing with Camel Park here, are you? Is that correct?
Camel Park area.
Table
yeah.
3, yes.
Yes, you've got a wee section there of 80 k's, and to me it would make more sense if you want Camel Drive to go into Camel Park, I should say, into 60 k's. You should bring that 60k area all the way from Southbrook to Camel Park. It would save a lot of money on signs, for example, because as soon as you go past Camel Park, it'll be automatically 60.
Sorry, Councillor Wins, we're going to deal with that in the next in the Rangiora issue, but I'm happy for the question to be answered for you now, but just to let you know, it's not being dealt with in this suite of recommendations. It's going to be dealt with in the next one. Yep.
So just to answer that, that would mean that 60 kilometre an hour area that was proposed would need to be extended further into the rural area on Flaxton Road, and I actually don't think there's an advantage in doing that. My personal opinion is you'd better to leave it within 80 kilometre an hour area. Once you leave the roundabout and start heading down Flaxton Road, you wouldn't get compliance with the 60 there.
Okay. Further questions or speakers? Councillor Wins, could you turn your microphone off? Paul? Did you wish to speak, Councillor Mealings? Yep.
So we've got some contentious issues here and a lot of good questions being asked. But I look at the table on page 58 in Diligent, and it points to a slightly different outlook and obviously a little bit of confusion, I think, in the public that has answered these questions. Where they were asked if Skewbridge Road from Flaxton Road to the 80K sign should be changed down to 80, 63.2% of people said yes. That's a reasonable majority. Now, if you go up to the top of that table and you see where they are talking about Flaxton Road, only 33.7 and 45.6 respectively, talking about the urban side that goes through the roundabout and the in the south of Fernside through to Skewbridge. So what I gather from that is that people didn't understand that the drop to 60 was actually being proposed through that roundabout. You cannot drive 80K through roundabout. It must be dropped. It's not possible to do that whether you like it or not. So I don't think people actually understood what was being proposed and why there. And I can understand that stretch of Flaxton Road where people aren't keen, because it is a nice wide open road in a rural area and not a lot of driveways and things coming off of it. But with the parameters that we have to work in, that being that we must have 2 kilometers to have 100K limit, that shrinks that down a little bit. That basically makes it so that we can't have the lower limits on either side to keep that one small stretch at 100K. Now, as Carlos very rightly pointed out, it's going to put 20 seconds on your journey. Now, I personally like to drive up to the speed limit as quickly as possible and drive at the speed limit. You know, I like the rural roads that they're the ease and quickness that one can travel, but also we all know faster the road, bigger the mess. As has been pointed out, one would rather, if you're going to get hit by someone, you'd rather be hit by someone doing 80 than 100. And even though we have people who break the rules, people who speed and whatever, if you, like, why when you go to a dubious intersection, why do you instinctively slow down when you're not sure about what other people might do? Because instinctively we know that if we reduce our speed, we reduce our chance of harm. And if a road is at 80 kilometers an hour and someone wants to overtake, if they want to do, 100 or whatever, even if they're speeding, they still don't have to speed as much to overtake that person. So again, the speeds are still overall lower, and it also reduces the amount of kinetic energy going into that crash, should there be one. As much as I like to put my foot down and go, I don't see any reason why we should not listen to our community here. And the information that has been given to us by the staff and ZTA, and put these limits through as proposed. So I'm in support of this, and I hope that you will all think about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Meadings. Any further speakers? I'm not going to exercise a right of reply because it's all been well said, regardless of what side you sit on. It's a fair debate. So I'll put the recommendation, just being clear that we all understand that we're going to come back to item C. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? I declare that carried. And would you like your vote recorded, Councillor Atkinson? Thank you. So now we're going to come to item C, which is table 4. So, and we're just going to take this table separately. I wasn't advised that members wanted to take individual streets separately. So, some are prepared to move. Councillor Blick. Oh no, sorry. Where did you sit on that one? I'll move it. Move as it is. Table C. Table C, so it's moved by Councillor Blakey, seconded by, I'll second it. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Earlier this morning I stated my opinion that I thought it was unenforceable, and I'm sticking to that. But in the debate we've had in the last few hours, it's become apparent that a lot of the decisions we're making here are almost irrespective of the fact whether they're enforceable or not. The other point, which I think Councillor Atkinson's made either recently or this morning, is that the people who are going to break this 30 proposed limit are our hoons. It's a bit of a boy racer track down there. They're not going to take any notice of the 30, just as they don't take any notice of the 50 anyway. So it's not a big deal one way or the other. There are some traffic calming measures in there, so I've changed my mind since this morning, and I'm prepared to not die in the ditch over it and let it go at 30.
Okay, I'm not going to exercise seconder. Councillor Atkinson.
Well, just for clarity, I'm not suggesting hoons. I'm talking about people who speed or break the law. That's what I'm talking about, because I've seen people that aren't hoons do exactly that.
Any further speakers? Oh, sorry, Councillor Barnett.
I just would like members to note that we have no other 30 km/h speed limit within the Kaipoi area or in the Rangiora town centre. The only place that we have 30 km/h limits are actually in the beach communities, and that's actually caused some problems for people because it's kind of inconsistent with the environment. And once you drop a speed limit to 30, it's really, really impossible to bring it back up. There's also been a lot of chaos in Christchurch in the 30k zones, and that's in a major city. The fact that these areas here are slower driving areas because the road condition is not better actually makes you drive to the conditions, but 50 is still a perfectly acceptable speed limit in other areas. So I really would caution members, this will set a precedent today. If you drop this down to 30, we will get huge calls from the community to make High Street 30, to make William Street 30, and other areas in our community.
Okay, further speakers, Councillor Redmond, followed by Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be supporting this motion. I'm unconvinced that there is a reason or need to reduce the speed limit from 50k's to 30k's. These areas are largely open and essentially no residential properties in them. I suspect that in actual reality, very few drivers will be exceeding 50, especially if you're going to a boat ramp with a boat. I suspect the mean speed is going to be somewhere between 30 and 40 kilometres per hour. But I think it's the thin end of the wedge, and I can't really see any justification for reducing it.
Councillor Ward.
once again, I think that it's sort of a safety issue, so that's how I feel about it.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Meetings?
The condition of the roads in that area, like 30 seems an awfully slow speed. The condition of the roads in that area are appalling. I challenge you to try to do 50 Ks on that road without needing to see your chiropractor straight after. And I don't know if our intention is to leave that road that way, but I do know, again, looking at those that were surveyed, that Raven Key, 62.3% supported. Charles Street, 57.5% supported. Jolly Street, Askeaton Drive, 57.1% of people surveyed supported. Therefore, I'll support the recommendation.
Thank you. Just excuse me just for a moment. I think we don't have any members of the public here because Councillor Durrett's part of our bubble, so if you wish to, you can remove your masks. Everyone can breathe a sigh. Sorry. That may change the status quo in here, right? Sorry, question, Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, just probably to Joanne. It's my understanding that Raven Key, Charles Street, certainly north of where we're talking, west, where are we? East. Where we're talking, those roads that Councillor Millings is talking about are actually brand new roads that have been done, and probably 70% of those roads no one actually lived on. Is that correct?
So Raven Key, the reason for the proposed 30 kilometre an hour area down through there is due to the cycle path connecting through there and across to Mapperking Bridge. There's also a school adjacent, so again pedestrian safety for kids accessing in and out of the school. Charles Street, Jolly Street and Askeaton Drive have all been upgraded. And there's been some relatively significant traffic calming going there to try and encourage lower speeds. We've obviously got activities such as the dog park, people getting in and out of vehicles, unloading and loading dogs, the sports fields. So there's a lot of recreational use down there, and it's trying to support that recreational use in those two locations by having a lower speed limit, which reflects the activity that's occurring in those areas.
Questions, given that what's trying to be portrayed, there's angle parking, is my understanding, outside the dog park, which is off the road. There are no houses down there, which you didn't answer my question on. There is no houses in that area that I'm aware of. You know, we're painting a picture here that isn't quite true. Is that correct?
Sorry, I'm not trying to paint a picture that's not true. We do have people parking and loading and unloading their pets down there. There's no houses, no, that's correct.
Okay, I think we'll move forward. Thank you. So any further speakers? Councillor Beck, if you want to exercise a right of reply, I'm happy to let you do so.
Very quickly. Yep, so Joanne's covered it quite well. Raven Key's got the school and the back issue. Charles Street has got the dog park and the Honda Forest and a lot of recreational walking, and all the road down to Askeaton. A lot of people are towing boats through there. So all in all, from the safety point of view, I support the motion. Be it, as I said before, that good luck with the enforcement of it.
Okay, I'm going to put the recommendation of Table C and Table 4. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. Declare that carried, but I think we might just get a division to be clear on that.
Councillor Atkinson? No. Councillor Meetings? Councillor Stewart? Yes. Councillor Williams? No. Councillor Redmond? No. Councillor Blake? Yes. Councillor Barnett? No. Councillor Ward?
Yes.
Councillor Doody?
Yes.
Mayor Corder?
Yes.
6, 4 against.
It's carried. Thank you. All right, so that deals with the Kaiapoi to Hiwi speed limits. So now we come to Rangiora Ashley. Is there any introductory remarks, Joanne or Ali, you'd like to make with respect to these speed limits?
No, nothing further.
Okay, so I'm just what I'm going to propose to do is what I said earlier. Do you want me to receive the report first? Yeah, so I'm going to move that we receive the report. That's seconded by Councillor Atkinson. There's really nothing really to debate at that point, so I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. So then we're going to deal with B, Table 1, C, Table 2, D, Table 3, E, Table 4, F, Table 5, and then I through to N, and I'm happy to move that. Is someone prepared to second? Seconded by Councillor Ward. I'm sorry, yes, so the only ones that we're not taking are, yes, 6 and 7, that's correct. Should take separately. So is everyone clear on that? What I said in the previous debate, which applies, so I'm not going to add anything further at this point. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ward?
No, I think
Okay, any further speakers? Yes, Councillor Barnett.
Once again, I support 90% of what's on here. However, I have grave reservations about Table D. Oxford Road is a rural road, and yes, there are times when there's quite a lot of traffic and the traffic drops to 80 k's naturally, but on general times there's actually no reason why you couldn't go 100 kilometres on there and be completely safe. Outside of the school hours and outside of the commuting hours slow down anyway. There's a lot more traffic going on that road. So to me, dropping 80 k's past Fernside School in that stretch of completely rural looking roads with very few entrances is pushing the urban limits too far. Our urban boundary is Lehman's Road. It's not Fernside School. And at the moment what we're doing here today, by dropping it to 80, is we're pushing out to making a rural area into an urban fringe, which is inconsistent with other areas in our district. So for major arterial roads, I still have a grave concern, but I'm not going to die in a ditch over this one. It's going from 100 to 80. Most of the time when there's commuters traffic there, it is dropping to 80 naturally. However, there are going to be some very unhappy people, with over 50% of the people surveyed not wanting this rural area to drop to 80 kilometres per hour.
For the speakers, you wish to speak now? You didn't really reserve it, but I'm happy to allow it this once.
I would really like to say that 80 is important up there past the Fernside School and that school area. People travel far too fast at 100k. It's very unsafe. I would never bike up there, and I think that there is a lot of traffic, but needs to progressively slow down coming into the into Rangiora.
Councillor Doody.
Having travelling that road quite often, I think 80 k's. I would really like to see that happen there, because I'm afraid I've seen too many near misses around that area, and people coming out of those side roads without really stopping and looking. So I would be really much in favour of that to 80.
Thank you. Further speakers? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Would you like your vote recorded? So then the next part is table 6. Now, I think you want, Councillor Barnett, are you happy we deal with this as one table, or do you want to deal with the roads individually? I'm happy to move. One table, okay. So I realise you have so maybe it's best I move that. Table 6, and do I have seconded by Councillor Ward? I don't wish to speak. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ward? Okay. First speakers?
I'd like to move an amendment, please. Leaving the road at 60, but I'd like to keep the following other roads at 100 kilometres per hour.
So you're moving that Lehman stay at 60, so you're just amending the others. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconder, Councillor Williams. wish to speak?
Yes, I'm perfectly well aware that I'm going to lose this vote, but I really have to talk about this as a councillor who lives on a 100 kilometre an hour road and has 19 entrances in our 2 kilometre stretch of road. While we are not as busy, we're on a hill and the people come roaring down Davis Road, and it is very difficult for my daughter who's just got her licence to try and exit our driveway. She has to be extremely careful. But drivers do have to be extremely careful in 100k rural areas, and it comes back to driver behaviour. This area, it does not look residential, it's lifestyle. And a lot of our lifestyle areas are 100 kilometres across our district. And I really do believe that we need to keep consistency to encourage people to actually travel at the speed that the environment shows us. We had a 50-50 response from residents. The reason being, they don't want to be pinged for tickets. If they enter an area that looks totally like the 100k road they've just come from, they're going to continue doing 100k and a sign will make no difference. The only thing, from studies have shown, the only thing that makes a real difference to driver's speed is A, enforcement, that they'll get tickets, or B, that they will actually see a change in the road environment, like it gets busier. In these side roads, off Oxford Road, we're not going to see enforcement. We're not going to see police sitting on Todd's Road very often, or Flaxton Road on this part very often. We're not going to see them on those middle pieces. The issue that we've got is we're actually creating inconsistencies in our district, and we're discouraging people from commuting in our district into the town of Rangiora. I am concerned that putting up a sign should not be seen as the be-all and end-all to actually change the driver behaviour that we're seeing currently. What we need to work on is education. We need to work on improving our road shoulders to allow there to be room for people to move if something happens or if they encounter a rural vehicle on these roads. These roads do not look like 80 kilometres per hour. And we will have exactly the same problem we had on River Road when we dropped the speed limit to 50 kilometres an hour, but we do not see people travelling at 50 kilometres an hour very often on that road because of the fact that one side is completely rural. It doesn't make sense. I'm concerned that we are using speed limits as a panacea to try and improve road safety, when what we should be doing is improving the condition of our roads that have a lot of traffic on them now. Increasing traffic is not a reason just to drop the speed limit. I absolutely don't want to see accidents, and there wouldn't be a single person here that would ever want to see anybody injured on these roads. But changing from 100 to 80 in these roads is only going to upset the rural community who have to come in to work and play in Rangiora, and we want to encourage them to come in. The people who bought on these roads knew they were buying on a rural road, as did I. The people who live on these roads should not get to dictate to the rest of the community what the speed limit is. It should be the district decision. So in this portion of the road, I do not see these roads have urbanised enough when they are in rural or industrial areas to actually bring them up to this sort of speed limit. So I encourage you to please reconsider keeping it at 100k until we can see some improvement in the road condition, that we have some funding from Waka Kotahi to do so, that we can actually see the value in making this extra cost to our district by changing speed limits constantly in rural areas that don't justify it. I am disappointed in this report. And I will say that now because I have seen no accident statistics to back up this data. I've seen no evidence that there is increased accidents on these roads with the amount of traffic. The accidents we're seeing fatals on are out in the rural areas, like Burnt Hill, Tram Road. So I've seen some injury accidents, but they have been caused predominantly by people ignoring road signs or ignoring actual areas that they should be driving or travelling at a speed that's far in excess of 100 kilometres per hour. So it comes back to driver education, it comes back to improving road condition, and otherwise a rural road in our district should be 100 kilometres per hour under the current national guidelines.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Williams of the amendment. Do you wish to speak? You did. Yeah, would you like to speak to it? No, I said a seconder, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I agree 100% here. I follow on from what from the Land Safety Committee there, the Automobile Association is saying, and they're having a problem all over the whole of New Zealand at the moment by dropping roads from 100 k's to 80 kilometres an hour, but the roads don't look like they're 80 kilometre zone roads. And probably the biggest fault is Wakataki, because they aren't funding councils properly to actually improve these roads, so the shoulders of the roads and the widths of some of these roads and what have you. So that's a problem. So all we're doing is trying to drop the speeds of the roads to get to the road to zero better, but it's not working even though it is getting dropped, because it's the condition of the roads and most conditions. So I can't support this, and there's also going to be a flow-on effect, because you slow up one area of some of the roads, it's going to make the other roads more congested, because all of a sudden I believe there's going to be a slower group of traffic which are closer together, and it's going to impound the whole flow-on effect. And some of this will impact on our very, very busy Southbrook Road as well, which is going to make Southbrook Road worse, and we've always got a major problem there. So I just can't support this. Doesn't make proper sense.
Councillor Ward.
Actually, it does make sense in my view, because if you start the 80 k's where we're starting to come into an urban area, you need to start to slow down, but also because we're going down Flaxton Road and continuing on, if you're doing 80 k's further back and the on-flow is 80 k's, you consistently have a slowing down, which is much safer for tractors coming out with children and people accessing in that area to schools. There's a high road usage joining up to where these are, and I think that it makes sense to bring everything down to 80 k's so that everyone's slowing down, so people are terrified of exiting out of their properties because people are going zoom at 100 k's or they're passing, and I think that I'll be supporting this lower speed limit. I think it's a much safer speed limit. I think it's consistent with what we're trying to achieve around the perimeter of the township until we can get and alleviate some of the pressures on the west side of the town and get the east side flowing better. We've got more traffic on the road. We've got all the time, and I think that it's proven that if the speed limits are reduced a little bit, 80, you've travelled at 80 down the main from Picton to Christchurch, you know, it's so much safer, and I think that I'll be supporting this reduction. I think that it will be more consistent to what we're trying to achieve around the perimeter of the town.
Thank you. I'm going to vote against the amendment. I don't disagree with Councillor Barnett on the question of education, shoulder work, enforcement. They're fairly logical things, but I actually, and I think Ellie and the team have done an absolutely superb job with the work that she's put into the reporting, running the process. It's been extensive consultation, and I really do genuinely believe in the integrity of that process. I don't want to piecemeal start going through these now and changing these while they've been out. I appreciate what Councillor Barnett's talking about. I've lived in rural community most of my life, up for the last 2 years when I moved into Rangiora, so I certainly understand what it's like to live in a rural community and also to commute. We've got growth, all those other things that are there. Slowing these down to these levels I think makes sense. Having used these roads myself, I understand it. Appreciate there's two schools of thought with it, so I'll be voting against the amendment. Any further speakers? I'm prepared to let you have a right to reply if you'd like to, Councillor Barnett. Would you like to? Do you want to do a right reply? You can if you want, you don't have to. Okay. I'll put the amendment. So effectively, Layman's Road would stay as it is, and the amendment keeps the other speeds at 100. So just so we're clear. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. Clear that lost.
Councillor, oops. Quick recovered. Deputy Mayor Atkinson. No. Councillor Mealings. Councillor Stewart. No. Councillor Williams. Yes. Councillor Redmond. Yes. Councillor Blackie. No. Councillor Barnett. Yes. Councillor Ward. No. Councillor Doody. Mayor Gordon.
No.
It's lost 7-3.
So we're back to the original recommendation. Is there anyone wishes to speak further? I think you've already spoken, Councillor Ward. That's all right. So I'm not going to, unless there's any further. Sorry, did you wish to speak, Councillor Atkinson? Yes.
I just want to clarify my position and why I voted no there in the debate. And the reason is that it's all or nothing for me. I don't believe in what we're doing here at all, and from the people I speak to, they don't either. So that is the reason I voted against the amendment. It's not that I didn't agree with most of what was being said, but it's either all or nothing for me, and it's nothing.
Did you wish to speak, Councillor Doody? Sorry.
I'd just like to say thank you very much to the staff for the amount of work that they have put into this. This is huge, and I really appreciate all their work that they've done.
Okay, I don't think there's any further speakers. I'm not going to exercise the right of reply. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. Declare it carried. Division. Hope you've got plenty of those sheets, Jim. Probably the most division sheets we've ever used in a motion.
Right. Okay. Councillor Atkinson. Councillor Mealings. Yes. Councillor Stewart. Yes. Councillor Williams. No. Councillor Redmond. Yes. Councillor Blackie. Yes. Councillor Barnett. No. Councillor Ward. Yes. Councillor Doody. Yes. Mayor Gordon.
Yes.
It's carried 7-3.
Right, lucky last. So we're now at H. Thank you, Chief Executive, for the division. H, table 7. So I'm going to move that as it is. Is there someone prepared to second that? Seconded by Councillor Blackie. It's this. I've already mentioned comments at the start around this. This is one that we have had extensive community feedback, especially from those who live in that local area, concerned about safety. They've written to us, we've met with the residents, and this is following through with that. I respect that there will be opinions on both sides of this, and I think we've done our work very clearly in this space, and I absolutely support the recommendation because we've done our homework and we've followed good process. So, Councillor Becky wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak? Sure.
Sure. I'd like to change, let's get this right, to maintain 100 kilometres from 50 metres past Camwell Park, 100 kilometres from 50 metres past Camwell Park to the current 100 km/h sign near Skew Bridge.
Okay.
So that would also necessitate the previously passed motion of making it 60 k's. I'd also need to put 60 k's up to Camwell Park, which was previously passed only to refer the distance back.
So it's a consequential decision
Yes.
of this. Right, so can you just read that back so k's up there, please?
I'd like to move that the road remains 100 kilometres per hour from 50 metres past Camwell Park intersection to the current 100 km/h sign near Skew Bridge. at the Kaiapoi end.
So that's, you're meaning Flaxton Road would be
Flaxton
the first
Road.
piece?
And then it becomes Skew Bridge Road, sorry.
That's fine.
From there to
Sorry, I
Skew
understand what you're moving
Bridge.
out.
And then the consequential action of that is that the 60 kilometre would be extended to 50 metres past Camel Park intersection.
So that would be a note. Notes that that consequential, that matter which we can get tidied. As, I think everyone's clear on what you're looking to. Are we all clear?
Sure. So up to Camel Park would have to go to 60 because we previously moved it to further back, 60 then 80. I'm extending the 60 out to past Camel Park to make one speed limit change, and then 100 k's from past 50 metres past Camel Park to the current 100 k sign at the actual Skew Bridge, which is about 50 metres from the bridge.
And someone prepared to second that? Seconded. Everyone clear on that? Seconded by Councillor Williams. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Barnett?
Are you clear?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Sorry, just speaking to this to test the meeting, and I'm very well aware that I'll probably lose the vote today, but in all conscience, I'm really, really disappointed with how this road was put in our strategic plans as a major arterial route, and then we are having constant feedback from residents on the route which that the speeds are now excessive. This road was designed to try and take some traffic off the Lineside Road, Southbrook Road area to help alleviate congestion in Southbrook. So the Rangiora residents affected by the congestion in Southbrook are also, their views need to be taken into consideration. And in the surveys, the feedback, you can go 30, 50, it's around half and half. Most residents who would have submitted on this probably live on the road, and I totally understand their views. I live on a 100k road. I have drivers who travel past my gate at 120 kilometres an hour quite frequently. So I am totally in sync with their concerns with inconsiderate, poorly behaved, ignorant drivers who come up and hoot and cause trouble to those residents who are trying to access their properties. And I 100% want to keep these residents safe. But if you come off the Skew Bridge and go on to Skew Bridge Road, excuse me,
sorry, members, we just, sorry. One speaker at a time. Councillor Barnett.
If you come off Skew Bridge and you come down onto that nice, beautiful, clear straight, it's got miles of room and visibility. It looks like a 100k road. I counted how many entrances there were between that 100k sign and Camwell Park, where it becomes more of a lifestyle sort of feeling. There's 13 properties. And as I said, in my 2 kilometres of Davis Road, there's 19 properties. So while the traffic is obviously the factor, there's actually less entrances on many of our other rural lifestyle roads. So we can't use that as a reason. It's not the entrances that are the problem. The problem is the volume of traffic and getting gaps, and the speed that some people choose to travel over 100 k's along that road. And that, again, comes back to enforcement. The speaker today actually made that comment himself. He said that the 80 to 100 will probably make little difference, to be frank, because the 100 to 80
Can we just let
will...
Councillor Barnett debate this? Thank you.
Yes. The 100 to 80, I actually wrote it down. He said it would probably make little difference if they got hit as a pedestrian on that road. It would make little difference. The road was designed as an arterial road, and I'm sorry, but to say that we're going to soon have an east bypass of Rangiora, it's 20 to 30 years away in our plans. 20 to 30 years, and that is in our current district plan and current projections in our district development strategy. It may accelerate, but at this point, it's a long way off. So we have a duty to keep Southbrook from becoming completely congested with our increasing population. We need to encourage people to go around the western route. And the only way you're going to encourage them is if nothing is seen as a barrier. Putting Silverstream at 60 has already been seen as a bit of a barrier. Putting this part of the road, which is completely rural, with only 13 entrances, it's at 80 will further deter drivers from using that route and will push them back onto the 100km/h line-side road, which then further exacerbates our problems in Southbrook. So we're not just changing a speed limit today, we're actually affecting all the traffic patterns of Rangiora and the rural hinterland that it services. What we're seeing today is an we do not want urban majority always dictating to rural minority. How you look after your minorities in our district is important. The people who use this road know that it is safe to travel at 100km/h if they drive responsibly. Doing this today will not stop one irresponsible driver. So we are looking at doing the wrong solution in the wrong area. We're actually detracting from the flow and effect to Southbrook Road. If a road looks rural, it should have a rural speed limit. The people on that road are zoned rural. They bought expecting it to be rural, and they also saw the Western Bypass on those plans, which they knew the traffic would increase. This is a consequence of our growth. It's not a consequence of the speed limits. So I'm very, very concerned that we've got a kickback response today that could impact severely on traffic patterns in Rangiora. I really want to encourage people to use this route, and if we don't encourage them to use this route, we're going to end up with traffic carnage along Southbrook. So I cannot in all conscience vote for it to go down to 80km/h until we have some other solution to help the traffic movement in Rangiora.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Williams, just to speak. Sure. Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, look, I'm, again, very quickly, because we're taking too long at this, I think, but it deserves attention. Look, I'm not going to vote for the amendment. I mean, the piece from the roundabout through to the end of Canley Close is rural. Exactly the argument that Councillor Barnett has been giving us, why you shouldn't lower a speed limit to 60k. So, you know, I'm afraid, for me, it's just the whole damn thing. It just keeps going on and on. You know, it doesn't matter which way you lower a speed limit, whether it's in a rural area or whether you don't, or, you know, it's just nanny state stuff.
I'm going to vote against. I've already clearly stated my support for the original motion. And that's through, as I said, being out and speaking with the residents that live there. I've stood there and watched. The concerns are very valid. I agree entirely with Councillor Atkinson, actually, that I think it'll have the complete reverse effect if you increase 60 up to Camwell Park. It would do exactly what Councillor Barnett is suggesting would occur. I think the point's being exaggerated. I don't think there's any evidence that this will necessarily, the changes we're looking at, will have an impact on Lineside Road. We're looking at Southbrook. We're looking in the long-term future. I like Councillor Ward's optimism, but I'm a realist. We're protecting that land around a future bypass, and we're considering those options. So there are a whole raft of things. Improvements through this corridor will happen when we get the Skew Bridge hopefully replaced and improved. So Mr Kazanis and others did put their case well. Our staff have done their homework on this and have presented a complete package here. That's why it's got my backing for the original motion, and I'll be voting against the amendment. Further speakers? Councillor Mealis.
Kirsten, Councillor Barnett, well, I sympathise with your point of view, and I am somebody who does like to put the pedal to the metal where I'm allowed. I do refute the argument that this would deter people from taking the Flaxton Skew Ridge Road option over sitting in terrible traffic with several traffic lights, school crossings, 50k traffic slowed down to a crawl to get to Lineside Road. If I'm given the choice, I'm going to avoid that urban crush of traffic at all costs. And even if it is just an 80k road, that's fine. It's going to take me 20 seconds more. It's still 20 seconds is nothing compared to the amount of time that I'm going to lose on my journey sitting in the congestion that is Southbrook at this moment. So
I'm afraid I'm not going to support your motion, but good try.
Further speakers? Right of reply, Councillor. Sorry, you would like to exercise? Yep, it's fine.
Listening to the debate on this, Mike, I've also parked on that side of the road there, and I've seen the congestion of people getting in and out of their houses and all that. It is actually nothing to do with speed. It is actually the numbers of cars on the road. And to be quite honest, I think this will actually close the gaps up between the cars and actually make it worse for them getting in and out of the driveway. And I only supported the Camel Drive part because I also went to that meeting with all the public there. A fair proportion of those people come from Camel Drive because they were concerned about the 100 k's in their wee windy road, which this actually solved that problem for them. And it's one hit with a brush. But this will slow, in my book, it will congest people together, and it will make congestion worse in Southbrook Road. I've been to some roading meetings and all that drama, and staff have told me if they, from the satellites by Pack and Save, if they increase that wee bit of road, the zigzag effect and all that, it'll move quicker people on and all that drama. Well, by congesting this road, bring it down to 80 k's, is going to make Southbrook more congested. Of course, a lot of people will turn down Fernside Road and opposite to what you were thinking, they're not going to keep using that road to go through Southbrook. They will turn left and go down Fernside Road and get rid of a bit of the congestion, but there's going to be a lot of people still carrying on, so it's actually going to close the gaps up more than anything. But as I say, I've gone down the set and I've watched the residents there. The mean speed of the cars, I think, was 91 kilometres an hour anyway. When it's fully congested, they're probably only actually doing 80 kilometres an hour in most of their time anyway. But if you slow it up, you're going to actually make that congestion worse because there's going to be a lot more cars coming to Southbrook quicker at the same time. So it's not about speed, this road, it's congestion for the public. That's what I believe it is, completely. And it doesn't look like an 80k zone, and people are going to speed. We've had instances of accidents and all that drama. I've seen people going past me, and I've been doing 100 kilometres an hour, and they've been probably doing 120 to 140 kilometres an hour.
You're getting close to your 5 minutes is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's cool, yeah. Thank you. So just give me the jingle when I'm at it, please. And
you're there.
well, thank you very much. So I'm going to support this motion.
Thank you. Further speakers, Councillor Ward, and then you're going to have right of reply, Councillor Barnett. Councillor Ward?
People coming from Oxford Way, if they want to travel at 100 k's, travelling through to Christchurch, the best way is done to Chain Road to Tram Road and continue. That's the best, shortest way. To come down, if you want to keep it 100 from Camwell to the Skew Bridge, you're going 60, and you're going 100, and then you're coming into Silverstream at 60. So the argument that there's going to be a traffic backlog is really wrong, because if you're doing 60 and then 80 and then 60, you're having a much better flow. That's how I see it anyway. And if you want to do 100k and go flat out, go down to Chain Road, go to Tram Road and get to Christchurch much quicker.
Would you like to exercise the right of reply, Councillor Bennett?
Just a comment. In response to Councillor Atkinson's comment about 60k, I didn't want to go to 60k, but because we took the Kaipoi Tuapewi report first, and that forced us down to 60k, I had no option. I couldn't change it back to 80k, which was my preference. This has actually raised a procedural question on perhaps we should deal with roads that cross ward boundaries quite separately. We need to actually deal it as a separate report, because the person who lives in another part of the district also has an impact on how they get from Rangiora to Kaiapoi to Christchurch. So it's a traffic pattern across the district. So ward boundaries actually don't make a lot of sense in some of these arterial roads. And I think the way we did it, unfortunately, I couldn't do that because I was bound by the previous mission. What I wanted to say is that, you know, with what I've heard from some of the people, we're not looking at the consequences of this, and none of us know what the consequences of this will actually be until they happen. So it feels like a bit of a trial to me at the moment. I think there will be consequences. I wanted to reply to Councillor Williams and say, yes, I believe the gaps will shorten, so be careful what you wish for, because those residents now may see gaps shortening by traffic travelling slower. What we will see is probably a bit more enforcement down there, I would say, once it drops to 80, and some perfectly law-abiding residents will get pinged with tickets. Once you get a ticket on a road, you tend to avoid it. So therefore, I think if they think, oh, well, cops hang out there, they don't really hang out on Lineside Road because it's a motorway, we may as well go down Lineside Road. Sneak through Fernside Road, which is much more dangerous than going Flaxton Road. So I can't tell you exactly what the consequences are going to be of this action, but I do know it's a wait and see. When this passes, which I'm sure it will, I think we'll have to have another review in 6 months to make absolute, I think is noted in the report, because there will be consequences. And I think the residents on that road may not realise what changing speed limits and changing enforcement on roads may actually produce in results to them, and it may not be to their benefit.
I'll put the amendment. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. Declare that lost. So that vote's recorded. So then we come back to the amendment is lost. So we come back to the original recommendation. Is there any further speakers? I hope not. Sorry, not that I wish to curb free speech, but I think we've done this ad nauseum. I'm going to put the recommendation. We're all clear what that is in table 7. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? No. Declare that carried. And so, division's the Chief Executive.
No. Councillor Mealings. Yes. Councillor Stewart. Yes. Councillor Williams. No. Councillor Redmond. Councillor Blackie. Yes. Councillor Barnett. No. Councillor Ward. Yes. Councillor Doody. Yes. Mayor Gordon.
Yes.
Carried 6-3, 1 abstention.
Right, so that's carried. So that brings us to the end of our speed limit consideration today. Can I acknowledge, as we have done through the debate, our staff, Ali, Joanne, and all those who have supported and behind. Thank you, Jared, as well, for your advice. And it's been a big debate, team, so thank you. Thank you, Board Chair Jared, for your attendance as well, and obviously our resident earlier. I think this is a convenient moment for a break because I know I've been exercised with this discussion. So let's have 10 minutes, be back about 10 to 3. You can grab yourself a cup of coffee and we'll resume with the next agenda item at that point. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. What a big piece of work that was. Yeah, it was a big piece of work. Yeah, we're back. Anyway, sorry, I didn't realise you had the next agenda item. You're going to break. Oh, that's true. tab 7. We're on live stream now, thank you. So we resume our meeting, so we come to 8.2, pages 265 to 357, so tab 7 in diligence. So Joanne and Ellie.
Thank you. Hopefully this report will be a lot more straightforward than the previous one. So the purpose of this is to seek change to the operating time in for the variable speed signs at Swananoa School and Loburn School. So this needs to be amended in our bylaw to align with the Gazette notice. So the recommendations are included, and it is just the confirmation of will change to the operating time at the end of the day. The morning remains the same. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Doody?
Thank you, Joanne. Just a question on these variable speed signs, when is it the flashing ones you're referring to? How do they, when the holiday times, how do they adjust those? Because I noticed the one in Ashley still kept going. So is there...
Kept going over the holidays. Okay, they should be, school should be turning them off. They shouldn't be operating over the school holidays. So we can follow up with the school if that was a case, because they shouldn't be. So
my question there is, with these two schools, will you make sure that they adhere to that? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and Kathy has been in contact, Kathy Graham has been in contact with the schools already. Yep.
Okay, any further questions? I've got an indication Councillor Barnett wants to move, seconded Councillor Doody. Councillor Barnett, do you wish to speak?
Yes, this is highly sensible to make sure that these are at the appropriate time so that people abide by the regulations. Really, really important to keep speed down around our school times, the busy times on our main roads, and so fully in support of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Doody. Do you wish to speak?
I agree too, because it's just so important that the children have a safe time for coming to school and leaving school, and that's and these signs are a great, wonderful invention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I don't think you wish to exercise right of reply. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ellie and Joanne. You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. Okay. All right. So we now come to 8.3, which is pages 358 to 390. That's the stock race bylaw request for adoption. So it's Libica and Kelly. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hopefully we'll read the report. I'll just give you a couple of bullet points to start for questions. So we received 51 submissions for people heard. We held the hearing on the 22nd of September. Most of the submissions that we got provided general feedback in terms of maintenance and flow, level of service, rather than specifically referring to proposed changes in the actual bylaw. And at the hearing, the panel determined that it would be best for drainage staff to deal with those type of submissions on a case-by-case basis. Most of them require site visits by drainage staff and things, so that will occur under the service request process. So we'll log them and have drainage staff go out. The consultation also highlighted that fact sheets that we have on stock water aren't referred to or known widely by customers, and that a level of service and maintenance responsibilities, among other things, are therefore not known widely either. So as a result of the hearing and the feedback that we received, the panel recommended that staff put together an information pack that we provide to existing stock water race users and also on future limbs, so that new owners are also made aware of our bylaw, their responsibilities, our responsibilities, and it was also suggested that we write that in conjunction with ECAN staff in order to inform those stock water race users of the new land and water regional plans as well. So yeah, that's a summary. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Libby. Do you want to add anything, Kelly? Okay, so questions? Councillor Stewart, followed by Councillor Barnett. Okay, can I just check, just in the definitions before we do that, circulates this report to our community boards, and it's the Mahi, so this the mover and seconder might be one of it's the Mahi Tahi Joint Development Committee and Runanga Liaison Committee, I think is the correct terminology, and it's just missing an own boards if I'm being fussy. So, right, okay. So, I'm going to move, Councillor Stewart, did you have a question? Yes, sorry. Councillor Barnett?
Sorry, just a question overall. I was a bit confused about the responsibility for excluding stock from waterways from ECAN and ourselves, and how clearly that's defined in the bylaw. What has been done in the bylaw to improve who does what in terms of that, which at the moment is not really being followed up very often?
So we've added an explanatory note to refer users to the Land and Water Region Plan, but we were conscious of not wanting to overlap or kind of re-quote rules, because if we did that, if ECAN ever changed theirs, then we'd have to review our bylaw. And also because Waimakariri District Council staff don't enforce ECAN rules, it wasn't appropriate to include them directly. But that is part of the reason why the information pack kind of come about as well, because it was thought that, you know, you're not finding all that information in one place, so it might be challenging for users to kind of locate all of the different rules and things. If we collate it in conjunction with ECAN, then hopefully it will make it easier for them to understand what they have to do.
So, Kelly, is there a risk if we put an information pack with our logo on it that people will see it as being our responsibility and that we're actually enforcing it?
Possibly. I think the role that we see ourselves playing is very much in that education and informative space. If there are issues, we will still proactively respond to them, and we see ourselves as the first point of call, and if it gets to a point where it needs to be escalated, that's where we will be working with ECAN from an enforcement perspective.
Okay. Further question? Did you have a question, Councillor Blicky, or are you... Okay, so no further... You have a question, Councillor Mealings? Yeah.
I don't know if it makes any difference, but if we pass it as it is it going to be proofread? Because there's an error in here.
In a report, or?
On the bylaw, as is written, on page 373, clause 5.4.2, it says, all such material deposited by the council and or its agent is to be placed in accordance with clauses 5.3.1, 5.3.3, and 5.3.3. So it's supposed to be 5.3.2, and I don't know if that makes any difference if we pass it like that or not, but if it does, then maybe we should just change that.
You get the goldfish for the...
I want the chocolate fish. No. And also, am I understanding correctly that those that don't use the stockwater race but have it alongside their property must still clean and prevent blockage and remove at their own cost and, where does it say? Yeah, basically, if they don't use it but it goes past their house, they have to keep it clean at their own cost, and they bear responsibility for the cleanings. Just clarifying that.
Okay, all right. So you're, it's been moved. I take it there's no further questions. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Blakey. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Stewart?
Thank you. I will briefly. Only 3 minutes I've got.
Well, you can have up to 10 for these.
Yes.
But
no,
keep it to 3 would be much appreciated. Sorry.
And oops. I will correct circulating the report to the community bards. While we may have some, I think it's meant to be our boards. But look, this was a robust and to my, I think the panel would agree, an overdue process. And we had over 50 submissions, and it was clear as we considered the submissions that there is confusion out there about responsibilities. There was confusion with the operation of the irrigation races as distinct from the stock water race, and as you can see from the analysis of the submissions, the issues that have come up, I mean, it is an indication to staff that work needs to be done, and that was the genesis of suggesting that we put an information package that goes out to all property owners with a race through their property, even if they don't use it. Then some of the benefits of not using it for stock is that property owners can apply in writing to the council to use it for domestic irrigation on their property. Now that wasn't well known at all. In fact, there are only about 20 or 30, I think, out of the 1,500 properties that have the race going through that do that. So there is a general need for upping the communication, improving also the language of the bylaw, so it is not stuck in language that is long past its use by date. So, I mean, I commend it to you to give it the tick off. It has been, apart from the literals that council meetings has identified, it has been a robust process that we have given good scrutiny to, and because of the crossover with, particularly on the stock exclusion issues, that we do need to work with ECAN on that, and people with the property owners with the race going through their properties need to understand that even if they're using it for stock water, the stock cannot access the water race at all, so there needs to be a trough system that takes it back from them putting their feet in the race and having a poop, which they do. So that's essentially what the Canterbury Land and Water Regional Plan will do. Very keen that we do a comprehensive communications package out to property owners. As I said, and you can see by the analysis of the submissions, there's clear misunderstandings that we have a real opportunity to address. So commend, and I must thank the staff for going over and above with this. Well done, Libby. It was very comprehensive, and I think I'm really happy with the place. You too, Kelly. Thank you. I'm really happy with where we've got with it, and I want it to be, as I think the rest of the panel, a really easy to use and understand bylaw, and acknowledge that a communications information package is essential to making sure that happens. So commend to your approval.
Thank you. Councillor Blakey, do you wish to add anything?
Just very briefly, it was a good process, and thank you to Libby and the staff. In an overarching sort of a way, there was quite a discussion, and we haven't resolved it because it wasn't our remit to do so, about picking up on what the question Nikki asked, the responsibility and the liabilities of people who have a race on their land they never use, or have a race on the roadside which is not their property, passing them and they never use. And one day we're going to have to sit down and address that, but that wasn't our job this time round. I just foreshadow that because it's quite a problem.
I just thank the panel for the work that you've done putting into this. It's overdue, and I'm sure it will be much appreciated. I think it's an excellent suggestion to have an information pack to go out to property owners, because increasingly over the years I've had many approaches from people who have no idea what it means to them when it goes through there and what their obligations or their rights are. So I think that's a really good suggestion. I agree, our staff in this space do excellent work, so thanks Libby, Kelly and team, much appreciated. Further speakers? Councillor Doody?
I was actually delighted to be part of this committee. This stock water is such a significant and historical part of our waimakariri's history, and it's really important that people that have this stock water race running through there understand the significance of it. It was a lifeline back when it was first introduced about 1896, and it's a lifeline for the farmers back in that day, and they just need to understand just how important that piece of infrastructure is. So I would really like to see some information go out to them, just help them to understand what that piece is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Who are the speakers? Councillor Mealings.
I'd just like to say thank you to the panel and the staff for dragging what was a pretty clunky-looking old bylaw kicking and streaming into the 21st century. It reads a lot better now and is a lot more clear. I very much welcome the approach of educating those who have these stock water races going through their properties, because there is very little understanding, and as you are aware, I do deal with very much in the lifestyle block area, if you will, and there isn't a lot of knowledge, I think, amongst people as to what their rights and obligations are with any kind of waterway, and what the difference is between them, and whether it's a drain or a stock water race, etc. So I think that some education being put together and put out to those people would be a very, very welcome addition to the information that we've got already available. But thank you for your work, everyone, and I do support the motion.
Who are the speakers? Right of reply if you'd like. Councillor Stewart? No, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Great. Thank you, Libby and Kelly. So 8.4 is next, which is the Rangiora renewals budget for Church Street. So that's Colin. 391 to 394. Thanks, Colin.
Good afternoon. So I'll try to be brief with this report. With the Rangiora water renewals, we had a core program of work which have been designed, tendered and awarded, but this report is about another piece of work that was identified through the design of a sewer main job. So with the Central Rangiora Stage 5 sewer job, the designer identified that they were going past a water main that was due for renewal as well, so suggested including the design for the water main as part of the sewer contract, which makes sense because it minimises disruption and should provide some savings in terms of traffic management and other costs. So we got that priced, and the price came back in at $160,000. So what we're proposing is that we bring forward $170,000 from next year's water main renewals budget into this year, so that we can award a separable portion for the water portion of work on Church Street into the Rangiora sewer contract. And the contractors already priced that as a separate portion throughout their contract, so they've been awarded the bulk part of the contract and are just waiting to hear back from us on the award of the water piece of work, which they would complete in April and May, subject to us awarding it to them. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Thanks, Colin. Any questions? It's a recommendation. Someone prepared to move? Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Ward. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Williams?
I think it makes common sense doing it all in one hit rather than a lot of double disruption, so thank you.
Okay. Councillor Ward. Further speakers? I'll put the recommendation on each, rather than reply for yourself. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thank you, Colin. All right, so next, 8.5, pages 395 to 454, the property acquisition disposal policy. Rob, thank you. It's tab 10. And once, I'm happy to invite members of the working group if they wish to add any comments after Rob's spoken.
Good afternoon, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff. This report seeks adoption of the draft acquisition and disposal policy, commonly referred to as PAD, and attached to attachment 1. This has been developed with guidance and support of the Property Acquisitions and Disposal Working Group, which includes 5 councillors. The policy is intended to ensure fair, transparent and compliant processes and behaviours are in place to protect the rights of property owners and council's reputation while endeavouring to maximise the return from any property acquisitions or disposal actions. Clearly alignment making with the core purpose of the organisation is critical. However, the opportunity and financial costs of keeping unidentified or underutilised where property assets comes out sense of an asset or service that is needed elsewhere. The policy establishes a regular 3-year review of council's property holdings by respective activity asset owners within council, such as Green Space or Three Waters and others. And the initial process uses an assessment that identifies properties that are well utilised and fit for purpose in relation to their primary activity for which they are currently being used. For those properties that don't score the assessment, there may be value in a more detailed assessment of the rationale for retaining the property for the current use or purpose, and this may give rise to consideration of options also to release part or all of the site for repurposing or sale. The initial high-level review would be due in August of this year in advance of the upcoming long-term.
We might need to get Rob another mic because that just keeps going in and out. Okay. Might need to get that looked at for the next few days because we've been having a few issues with that. So maybe, I don't know, Adrian, who looks after that one, the team.
Is that better?
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Only a little bit more on the introduction. The initial list of properties would allow a program of more detailed assessments to be undertaken by the activity unit and property unit to consider the merit of retention, repurposing or disposal. Delivery on the initial assessment, however, may be challenging for some activity areas, in particular green space, due to the large number of properties under their management, which is over 500. As a result, the property unit will work with asset owning units to triage the list of properties under review. As a result, there may be some properties that will not be reviewed prior to the August date due to the low likelihood of change of use or a viable sale prospect being progressed. Those properties not reviewed over the next 6 months will be included in a review for the following 12 to 18-month period. Details of the program will be expanded on in the PAD working group to ensure appropriate prioritisation and oversight is taken into account. An example of that is the intended focus on Three Waters, given the potential changes involved in that sector. I'll take the balance of the report as being read and the policy and open to questions.
Thank you. Neville or any other members of the panel want to add? Chair of the PAD.
Well, yeah, very quickly, just to say, look, this policy has been through the mill. It's been there and back, then it went there and back again, and it's since been there and back again. Solicitors' eyes over it, staff's eyes over it, wherever we can put the eyes over it. We've done that to try and come up with a policy that is hopefully understandable in a pretty complicated world when it comes to property that's owned by a council and the steps you have to take to actually get rid of it or buy it, whichever way it may be, and how we can, such things as reacting quickly when things come up and owners want to dispose of things pretty quickly. It's actually really hard to do. So what I just want to reassure councillors of is that the committee has, to get to this point and get this in front of you, has been through the mill pretty much, and Jihan, I want to thank him, Rob, and his staff for their input. It's been valuable to actually get somewhere where we need to actually get out there and make sure that we've got it right. The only real way to do that is on the advice of the people that have given us that we have it correct.
Thank you. Any other panel members want to add? All right. Thank you. So questions? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, Rob, I'm just a bit curious about how council's community outcomes rank in terms of the priorities on some of these other sections. So on page 406 of our agenda, which is in your section 3 policy objective, in point I, you've got aligned with council's policy strategies, but you've kind of got the council's community outcomes at the bottom as kind of a little add-on. Wouldn't it be better to put the council's community outcomes up with the council policy strategies, long-term plans? And can you explain why that wasn't done?
I'm not sure that it was necessarily rationalised quite the way that you're talking through, and the timing and sequencing of that, I don't think necessarily takes away from the significance or relevance or importance of those matters. So I'm not sure if that really adequately answers the question, but I do see clearly community outcomes are the driver, albeit that community outcomes also are subject to change over the course of time as well, as are policies and strategies.
Just following up on that, B3, one of the criteria sections, doesn't actually seem to clearly meet community. Could that be strengthened?
It's certainly open to strengthening that if that is considered by certainly the other members of the working group may have some views and thoughts on that. I would like to make the point that the review process is actually an initial step. It's not the end point. It's only a means by which we identify some properties that may, and the word may is not will, be considered further for repurposing or disposal. And the process at that point is very much a thorough exploration of the community value that is placed on the existing asset and activity that goes with it. So I guess there are some aspects of that are sequential and that then are covered at that later point in more depth.
And just finally, I just wondered, have you had any feedback from the community boards? And if not, why aren't they consulted before we adopt this policy? Noting on 4.418, it's only council that's involved, not community boards in this process.
I think that I'm certainly open to the other panel members or the working group members to also comment on that. It wasn't something that came up as we were pulling this together. However, what I would say is again, there's an internal, if you like, a technical process here, and part of the consultation around any change of use of a property or disposal of a property would certainly be something that I would imagine if the community board as a stakeholder, they would likely to be engaged with. And I think what we have to realise is these aren't necessarily driven by the property unit. All of these sites have got an activity owner who themselves engage with relevant stakeholders, including the community board. So consideration of any changes like that would in all likelihood go through quite a thorough process around the views of those stakeholders.
Okay. Do you want to add anything there, Councillor?
I am happy to add to that Rob's explanation is actually a very good one, and the intention is that community boards that would have a say in any matter, in any property within their area that would happen. But first it has to go through that rigorous process of can we or can't we? And that's the idea of this policy is if we can sell it, for instance, do we want to? And the real matter that was a challenge for all of us is how do we get that in the first instance to every department of this organisation? Because just because Green Space wants to get rid of it doesn't mean to say that roading doesn't want it, or water, or whomever that may be. And that our understanding as a committee, and the committee can correct me if I'm wrong, that has actually always been a challenge. People have put bits of ground across people's tables that they don't particularly want, but it may not have gone to other places. So it's about where it can go in the organisation and how, and then from there, if there is a disposal or an acquisition, then it's how that gets to obviously everybody else, including community boards and community, about what it is that we do. That is the intention of this policy. As I said before, I think we have to sort of test it to make sure before the review that we do have it right. We're pretty convinced we are. Sheehan, our solicitor, is pretty convinced that we have it correct, and he made several changes. So I'm hoping that, you know, through that test we have got it right. If we haven't, I don't think there's any real harm to be done to us, but the community was certainly the start of the conversation, if you like. So,
okay. Doesn't look like there's any further questions. Do you wish to move policy, Councillor Atkinson? Seconded by Councillor Redmond. Do you wish to speak?
Well, I think I've probably done that in the fact of explaining what it is that we've done. But again, just to reiterate to certainly Sheehan, who has had opened our eyes a couple of times with some things that we thought we could do, but couldn't do without a process around it. It's not like heading out and just selling your business privately. And there are some certain things from indication of properties for sale that can actually almost hamstring us from selling them if we don't do it in the correct manner. So hence the reason for this policy, and hopefully we've got it right, and that it works well for this organisation as a whole, and everybody within this organisation, including the community, can have some input into that.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank Rob and his team for the work that went into this. I started off thinking we were going to have a disposal sort of working group, but it sort of morphed into something much more than that. And we have spent a lot of time on the policy, and I think we've ended up with a pretty good document. And it's not a simple matter to dispose of property. There are so many and a multitude of different types of ownerships or restrictions, and can of worms really. So I'd get very frustrated if I was working with that every day, Rob, so you're doing well. So I'm just happy to support the adoption of the policy.
Councillor Barnett.
Yes, and just to say that I will support the policy. My questioning was just around the strengthening of community and just where our community outcomes sit in relation to community policy, because I think outcomes come first and policy comes second. You drive your policy from your outcomes. So I felt it should have higher precedence actually in the policy, but I'm not going to die in a ditch. It's the first time I've got this. I'm just aware that sometimes community are very attached to council assets or to council land and have used it for various purposes which may or may not be particularly aware in the council, particularly in the rural areas. And we have, you know, whether it's roading reserve, whether it's building, that's really, really hard to get a comprehensive policy that would go from unformed roads to parks to buildings. I mean, I really applaud you guys for putting something together that covers everything, but I just am nervous because we had an example recently where our district is small, people talk, as soon as there's investigation into a property, it gets known, and then the Chinese whispers start. So I just wanted to make sure that we were getting the community outcomes right first before we go on to the policy.
Okay, further speakers? Right of reply?
Well, just around that, and I think the example you give is actually very real. The reality is that until there is an indication that a property is either going to be disposed of or bought, there is nothing. And that is actually the message that needs to get out because of the legal implications. While I have absolutely no problem with bolstering the strength of communities in there, because that's our objective, but the reality is that we have to go through almost a hell of a process before we get to the point of talking to people. Is it or isn't it? Why is it? Does anyone want it? All those things, because at the start of that, it may not be any good to anyone either way. It's actually going through that policy to get something to put in front of it. It's a bit of a chicken and egg, but to put in front of the community to ask what it is that they require us to do. So, yeah, it's sort of a bit. So I understand your question. It's just that it can be quite complicated to do. So.
Thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, team. Okay, 8.6, the Kaipoi Community Hub Project Management for Site Enabling Works. We had a reasonably good briefing about this morning, so it sort of follows on the next part of the process. So thanks, Tessa and Chris.
Thank you. The key purpose of this report is to seek council approval that 100,000 of the 300,000 provision from the COVID-19 Recovery Fund approved at January 2021 meeting of council be allocated for project management to ensure effective and efficient completion of site enabling works for the Kaipoi Community Hub project. And obviously that is pending confirmation of funding approval to progress the project via the annual plan process. You will now all be very familiar with this project and aware that funding has been confirmed through the long-term plan to develop the Charteris Street land for a community hub where recreational and hobby groups can co-locate and where people can be welcomed, connected, learn and develop new skills. In presenting this report, I'd like to highlight that this site is included in the Waimakariri Residential Red Zone Recovery Plan for rural land uses. Part of this site was included in the Kaipoi Reserve's master plan as a community studio, and the activity was consulted on through the 2021 annual plan. This project has received significant support from Kaipoi Tuahiwi Community Board alongside broad spectrum community stakeholder and high-level funder endorsement. Attached to the report you will see a summary of work done in response to initial community consultations, which were quite extensive. The draft final concept plan that Rachel and Duncan presented earlier today, and the purpose and objectives for the trust, some preliminary work on that, and the proposed Kaipoi Hub development structure, and that includes the community and social development for the project alongside the proposed infrastructure project development. Significant work has been undertaken to date with the project gaining considerable and perhaps even unprecedented momentum. Community development staff have undertaken considerable work to ensure the viability and sustainability for the proposed hub. This has centred, as Rachel detailed, on the establishment of a trust with sound governance, process and operating models, including a broad spectrum and long-term funding strategy to support the ongoing operation of the hub. Long-term sustainability and future-proofing have been key considerations right from the start. While in all likelihood the Trust will own all the buildings on site, all three current user groups, Satisfy, Food Rescue, Croquet and Men's Shed, agree that a shared and uniform approach will address many of the community's concerns, maximise funding opportunities and enable them to get on with their core business. As indicated, support for this project, including the facilities aspects, has been indicated by key funders like Lotteries and Rata Foundation. In consultation with the 3 user groups, a trust deed has now been drafted. This has been submitted for review by Council's legal advisor. Terms of reference will be finalised by the user groups as part of the trust establishment once the draft deed has been reviewed. A detailed draft set of user guidelines has also been developed. This was done quite early on. It has since been reviewed. This will be utilised by the Board of Trustees to frame the operation, management and maintenance of the facility. So, with sound governance and operational infrastructure planning in place, there is now an urgent need to ensure that the site enabling infrastructure works have adequate project management provision to see the initial development through to its completion. You will note that in a report to the January 2021 Council meeting, staff flagged the potential need for $100,000 to see the enabling work development through to this point. At its January meeting in 2021, Council adopted the recommendation to allow provision of $300,000 from the COVID-19 Recovery Fund toward the potential resourcing of social recovery facilitation and infrastructure project management for the Kaiapoi Hub, along with any potential impacts on aquatic facilities subject to council approval. And this sat alongside COVID recovery funding allocation for economic development. For 2022-23 annual plan deliberations, staff have made provision to retain the existing mainstream community development role given the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on our rapidly growing district. Therefore, community development staff do not anticipate needing to utilise the COVID Recovery Fund for the 2022-23 financial year for those aspects, particularly social recovery, which is now ongoing. Alongside this, low uptake for the fund has predominantly been due to an unexpectedly low impact of COVID on the local economy, and there's no longer a need for aquatic facilities to utilise the fund. So, taking into account the $30,000 allocated toward a disaster recovery strategy review, at this current point, only $800,000 of the $2.1 million has been utilised, and I will refer you to a table as item 4.2 for a breakdown of actual expenditure of the fund to date. Infrastructure and site works planning is now complete, and as I have indicated, strong governance and community development-led project management for the social and community aspects is in place. However, there is currently no provision for project management for the site enabling works. Staff have now developed a draft final concept plan, and you saw that this morning, and are ready to progress this to resource consent. The original concept plan was revised in response to feedback from residents' meetings and workshops and continued consultation with the proposed hub groups and technical and practical considerations for the site. Staff were successful in obtaining $435,000 from Council through the 2021 to 31 long-term plan, and this funding is split between the earthquake recovery loan and the recreation loan, and I know that you were updated on this earlier. And this has been included in the long-term plan budgets. However, as identified in previous reports, the funding approved in the long-term plan will not be sufficient to fully develop the Kaiapoi Community Hub in its entirety. In strategically looking to address this, staff have worked extensively with the hub user groups to ensure that the concept design is as cost-effective as possible. The red zone regeneration project is nearing completion, and a corresponding restructure of the district regeneration team has resulted in the non-replacement of key staff leading the technical aspects of the Community Hub project. And some of you may remember that Michelle Flanagan had a key role in this in the initial stages. So what this means is there is currently no one dedicated to project to manage the infrastructure-related aspects of the project, including the site enabling works. Externally contracted project management will be necessary to ensure that this work is completed in a timely and cost-effective fashion. It is anticipated that such provision will be required from February 2021 through until the end of the 2022-23 financial year. That's approximately 16 months at a cost of $1,470 per week over a 68-week period, equating to just under the $100,000 anticipated project management cost for the infrastructure aspects of the Community Hub. So you will note that this report proposes three options. Option one being to approve the request to utilise an external project manager and to use the funds from the COVID Recovery Fund to do so. Option two is to decline the request and have staff resource this through the acquisition of external funding. This is the least favoured option, and that funding streams are scarce for staffing. We already have a highly stretched social and mental health and community sector, and it's very unlikely that we are going to get project management costs for a project such as this out of those usual funding streams. And this would also cause significant delay, and that would result in a really detrimental effect on the goodwill and support of major funders, key community partners, and also community residents who do have an expectation at this point that the project will go ahead.
Can I just say, I think your points are really well understood. You've made them really well. So you might just want to wrap up and we can go to questions, because it's pretty comprehensive what you're looking for, so really clear. Is there any questions? Councillor Williams, followed by Councillor Ward.
Yeah, well, we're concerned, we've all been told COVID is just going to be starting, and we haven't used much of our fund yet, but it's potentially going to be starting. How can this be COVID related compared with Northbrook Community Hub there? What's the difference? What should we actually be using the COVID money when COVID actually hasn't struck our community big time yet, as predicted?
Okay, so the Kaiapoi community was severely impacted by the first COVID event in 2020. The local primary schools had a significant increase in families who could not afford to buy food. They set up food bank relationships where there were food parcels delivered for parents, breakfast clubs and lunches for children. So there was a significant loss of income in a number of families across Kaiapoi, particularly secondary income, which in a lot of families is what determines whether you can pay the rent, the mortgage and food.
Thank you. Further questions? I think it was addressed, Councillor Williams, but if you have a further question, you're welcome to put it. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Tessa. It is complex, but we had this briefing this morning and I made some notes, so I'd like to sort of get to the chase if I can, because I am actually a numbers person. I understand that we've already approved $465,000 from last year, and there's $100,000 for site and car parking that's been approved, and there's some other money coming in which totals $618,000. The cost to do this new vamped one is we're looking at 1.3 million. We're 635,000 short, and that's what we need to look at to get this underway and to get the basics and get it completed, which includes a 25% contingency. Is that really the bones of it?
No. So this morning's report referred to the request for the project development costs.
Right.
So that's the cost of the infrastructure
right.
side of the development. What this report seeks, and it is confusing, what this report seeks is project management provision to make sure that that infrastructure project is delivered effectively and efficiently.
So this is on top of?
Yep.
It's another 100,000 on top of the 635,000?
Yes, so
okay.
because it makes sure that that can be project managed.
Right, and delivered on time?
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you. All right,
Great.
so we're looking at 635,000 plus 100,000. Okay.
Thank you. Further questions? Well, someone prepared to move?
I'll move.
Move Councillor Ward, second Councillor Blakey. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ward?
Yes, I think that it's a much needed, Kaipoi hasn't got anything like this, and I think it's quite timely, given that the men's shed is, the disaster, that devastation that's happened last weekend, and I understand it's 3 to 6 months lead in. I think we need to get on with the job. We need to get it done. I think it'd be amazing for the community of Kaipoi, and I think we have a responsibility to give them this would uplift and create a lot of space for a lot of people in the community of Kaipoi.
Councillor Blakey?
We need to proceed with this, keep the momentum going. Yes, there are going to be lots of hurdles to jump in this project, financial I'm referring to. I'm confident we can reallocate some regen money, we can tap into the funding sources. It's going to be tough to get that money together, but I'm sure we can do it. And it also could be tough with the inflation factor that's going to hit us as well. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In the meantime, we need this 100k to keep the project rolling. Okay. Please support it.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Williams.
Whilst I think this is a good thing for a community hub there, I do have concerns about us spending ratepayers' money while there could be potentially a bit of a downturn in our community, and people may have problems suffering paying just the normal rates bill, and we seem to be adding to it all the time. I realise it's a good community facility, but outside funding is my favour rather than chucking ratepayers' money at it all the time, because some of those ratepayers are struggling and are probably going to be struggling worse off soon with what potentially could happen in the COVID situation. So whilst I'll be supporting it, I am very concerned if we're just spending money in a situation where some of the ratepayers are struggling.
I certainly, Councillor Williams said, but we need to augment this project and do it properly. It's been shown to have widespread support. I think our team have done the work on that. I was really impressed with Rachel's Duncan's presentation here this morning, and we've been through a full community development model here, from the views that were expressed at the first meeting we went to seeing the concept, to then going out and meeting people on site. It's been very well done. I fully support it's an awesome community project, and last weekend was clearly demonstrated that the absolute need for this and how vulnerable some of these groups are. Recognise the comments you make. We need to spend $1 to make $1, in the sense that there will be, as Chris mentioned this morning, there will be, or I think it was Grant, there will be and has been approaches to Rata and the other groups. They are waiting for this to come together, and I was pretty very impressed by the reaction that was expressed today, that clearly indicates that this is a project that will carry their support for funding. It's already got MSD funding behind it, which is almost unheard of, so and certainly worlds that I've been in the past, so it's proving itself, so well done. My full support. Neville.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm the same. I understand Councillor Williams' question, but I mean, some of these facilities are not just Kaiapoi. Certified Foods doesn't just work with the Kaiapoi community, but it desperately needs a home in trying times to make sure that it can do something. And I think we can all be rest assured around this table that a project of this nature wouldn't even be being thought about if there wasn't regeneration land, because I'm not sure where we would have it or how we could actually set it up somewhere else in Kaiapoi. The borders are pretty stretched. Now that land is there, and it needs a really good use, and in my view, this is probably one of the best uses you can give that land. I mean, the other argument, oddly enough, by the residents when things were pretty hot was turn it back into housing. So that was an interesting concept from, in fact, almost from a couple of people who said we never want to see housing on here again. So that was rather interesting in itself. But what I'm saying is that land is the basis of this. The community is the basis of the project. The fact we have the land means we can actually do something with the project. And that's, for me, the important thing. And yes, it costs money in which to do that, but our Mayor is right. We have to speculate to accumulate, and that is more than the dollar. It is about people's well-being.
Further speakers? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I wasn't going to speak. I'm fully in support of the project, but I just want to also note that it's a very, very small investment for what we're seeing in terms of food security in the district, and that to me is the most important project on this whole community hub. The rest are helped, but that's the one that has to go ahead. We're already seeing food banks now struggling, and it's only February. Now we're going to have to go through potential shortages of supply with COVID. And it's absolutely essential that we find a base that's going to be suitable and appropriate for the food supply we're going to need to do going forward. So to me, that's actually why it's really, really critical to get this project up and running. So if we ever have disasters in the future as well, that we can look after our district.
Thank you. Right of reply, Councillor Ward.
I'd just like to let you be aware that the down Northbrook Road, the community hub there that we have there is so utilised. It's so well. It does a lot for our young people. It's very, very busy. It's well used, and it's a very important part of the development of our young people. So I can see this hub and this area in Kaiapoi doing that and more for the people of Kaiapoi and the people of Tuahiwi or whatever, whoever, for the whole district. And I see that it's going to be a wonderful asset for our district.
Thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? I declare that carried. Thanks, Tessa and Chris. Right, next we've got the Chair's report. So I found out this morning that the Chair's process had been considered that Chairs didn't need to come along. In future, I've asked that Chairs are invited to come and present their reports because I think that's important for them to have that opportunity to speak to us if they'd like to. So, but with that in mind, I'm just going to, I think we'll take the lot on block because there's no real need to debate them individually as people want to. You're happy to move, Councillor Barnett, seconded by Councillor Williams. Do you wish to speak? No. Further speakers? I'll put those reports. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried. And just in doing that, just to acknowledge the work that the community boards do. And we very much value their involvement, and it's good to see that reporting back here. So next is referred from committees item 9.1. So that's Don. Thank you. Pages 490 to 519. So Don and Jig, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We'll take this matter as read. I think everybody around the table will be very familiar with this topic. However, it is important to note this is quite an important milestone in this particular project. The effect of passing this resolution will be to adopt the concept plan as has been circulated previously, and it will also be to establish a Southbrook Road reference group for moving the long-term elements forward. The terms of reference have been discussed firstly with the Southbrook Road Working Group and also with the Rangiora Advisory Community Board, so there is general support for all of the recommendations in here, and I'll leave it at that and allow, happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Do you want to add anything, Joe?
I'm happy to leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Questions? So do we have someone prepared to move? Is there a hand going up, Councillor Lackey? You're going to, Councillor Ward, seconded. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ward?
No, we've a lot of planning, a lot of consultation, and it's time to move, and I'm sure that the Southbrook residents will be very thrilled to see something happening. So well done.
Councillor Vicky. Any further speakers? I'll put the recommendation then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Don and Jig, thanks for your work and the team behind it. Cheers. Right. Next is 9.2, come forward grant. Pages 520 to 539, Rangiora Croquet Club. So this is just a recommendation that's come from CNR.
Thank you,
You want
Mr. Mayor.
to introduce your new staff member that's here?
That's
at the
exactly
same
what I was
time.
going to do.
Oh, good. Sorry, I've stolen your thunder.
Yeah, I already gave him a heads up that was going to happen. So, Martin, please stand. Please rise for the council.
Come to the table.
Come up, Martin. I'll let Martin introduce himself then, seeing as you brought him forward.
Thank you, Grant, and everybody for the opportunity. My name's Martin McGregor, so I'm the new Senior Advisor for Community and Recreation. Just my second day. I come to you from the Christchurch City Council, where I worked for 13 years. I live in Pegasus, so I've got rid of the commute, so that's very pleasing. But yeah, look forward to seeing a lot more of you.
Welcome, and it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I see you followed the tradition of Thai Tuesday, is it? Yes.
He was told it was not optional.
Good work. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Just in terms of the report that you've got in front of you there, as the Mayor's pointed out, this has been to Community and Recreation a couple of times, first through a deputation by the club, and then secondly through a report that we presented back in December. I'll take the report as read. The underlying theme here that we're looking for from the council is that we actually resolve to request the working group that's been proposed to set up, that the Rangiora Croquet Club do pay back the loan. So that's the key decision that we're actually asking the council to ratify here. So thank you. I'll take any questions.
Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Grant. There are two differences between the CNR report and the recommendation of 9.2. Both refer to $42,000. One is silent on interest. The report today says $42,000 including interest. Would you agree that should be plus interest as the starting point?
Yes, and that was actually debated at the CNR meeting as well, from what I recall, Councillor Redmond. So yeah, I would agree.
Thank you. Further questions? Are you prepared to move the recommendation, Councillor Redmond, with that addition? You are? Yes. Seconded by Councillor Bryan. You wish to speak?
Just to say, Mr Mayor, that this was thrashed out at CNR. It's not an easy topic to deal with, and hopefully the working party will perform a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryan. Do you wish to speak? No. And you can respond to yourself if you like, Councillor Redmond. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary declared, carried. 9.3, going to handle that grant, or is Andy? Oh, sorry, I didn't see Andy there. Pardon me, you must have just snuck in. Unless you've been sitting there for a while, I just didn't see you. Perfect timing. So 9.3, 540 to 554, Rangiora Town Hall.
Hello, everybody. This is the purpose of the report, is to obviously recommend and get approval for replacing
Sorry, you might need to use the mic. You don't have to leave your face mask on unless you want to, Andy. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
Only for public and...
I'll get all hot and flustered underneath it as well, so...
I'll leave it on then.
So yes, we are looking at replacing the retractable seating that's currently in Cinema 3 in the Rangiora Town Hall and replacing it for a 98-place fixed solution, more in line with the existing Cinemas 1 and 2. The purpose of this report today is to obviously for the Council to recommend the expenditure of $150,000 to be up for consideration in the 2022-23 annual plan. On the basis that the money will be loan funded with payback arranged via an increase in base rent to Town Hall cinemas of approximately an increase to $70,000, $140,000. Our current commission rate that we get from all their ticket sales will remain the same. So in essence, it will be loan funded and it should obviously not be an impact on the ratepayer. This will be arranged over a 10-year period. I think most people have seen the report, so I will probably take it that it's been read and open up for questions.
Thank you. Jim and I discussed this morning with Adrian just some adjustments to the recommendation, which was, just to be clear, so you've got those, Adrian? Thank you. Sorry? Oh, thank you. Is that on diligent or not quite yet? So just the recommendation would read, just a couple of minor things, recommends the expenditure of $150,000 for consideration. We've put the word draft annual plan in there because it's draft until we approve it. So draft annual plan, subject to manager finance and business support and manager community and recreation receiving an appropriate 3-year business operations forecast to predicted participation projected participation and revenue from Town Hall cinemas to be reported back to Council. I know that that's come in, but what had been discussed at management was that those two managers would get together and consider that, and then that would be reported back to us once it's been. So it's effectively this is giving a green light subject to that being properly considered.
Perfect.
Is it okay?
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, you should have had an updated report, a 3-year forecast from Tin Man Cinemas yesterday afternoon.
Yes, so what this is asking for, subject to colleagues agreeing, is that our senior managers review that obviously with yourselves.
Perfect. To
make sure that that's in line and with our in line, because we've had a number of instances where they've asked for relief, rightly so, in the process, but we just want to make sure that it's viable if we're spending $150,000. Is that okay? So do members understand that? Questions?
Just a question of you, Mr. Mayor. Why would we recommend the expenditure now? We're also discussing it in 2 days' time, the annual plan. Wouldn't that be the more appropriate time to actually talk about the expenditure?
Well, it's recommending the expenditure for consideration in the draft plan, so that's what the word says.
But it's saying that we as a council are recommending to ourselves that we spend it, whereas the wording could be just recommended council to consider the expenditure.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Is it okay to change the wording?
Recommends council consider, yeah.
As part of the draft annual plan.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. Well, I assume everyone else is happy with that, whoever's moving it. I'm not the sole decision maker here. Wendy, sorry, you'll move that. So you're happy with that change, Wendy? Seconded, Councillor Atkinson. Would you like to speak, Councillor Doody?
Yes, I'm actually very thrilled that we're going to be looking at this in the draft annual plan. It's an opportunity to really promote and enhance our films investment and to encourage people to go to our cinema with comfort and also the mere fact that they've got that separation, which is very important. So it's really important to promote our cinemas to the wider public.
Thanks, Councillor Doody. Who was the seconder? Sorry, Councillor, do you wish to speak? Any further speakers, Councillor Barnett?
Just thank you for the change in the recommendation, because it seems strange to recommend expenditure to ourselves. I'm yet to be persuaded that this is the right time for this report, but it'll be discussed in the draft annual plan process. Obviously, we've seen a great downturn in people attending the cinema, and that's probably going to take at least the next 6 months to a year to recover. So I'll be very interested to see that business plan. However, when businesses like this have a downturn, it does take a little while for them to come back. So I'm just going to question the timing. I think it's an excellent idea. I approve of the project, but I'm just concerned about timing.
Thank you. Further speakers? I don't disagree with some of the points you're making, Councillor Barnett. I support it because they actually need this investment to be made, but I would like our appropriate senior managers to just make sure that they've looked through that business plan and are comfortable. Jeff, from what he's advised, is, but I just like to see that rigour, but it's appropriate that it's considered as part of our budgets. Do you want to add something, Andy?
Yes, just to sort of support and give you a bit more information in terms of I had a good conversation with Tin Man Cinema today, and I understand that over the last 2 years there's been very much a restriction in the delivery of and the release of new movie releases. That is now caught up on itself, so we're actually, this year is actually going to sort of be a return to norm. So they're now releasing all of that backlog in 2022. So, and all of those are coming through at the end of Christmas time, so Christmas 2022. So their timing is actually probably quite a good time, because we've now got the facilities for them to maximise actually those ticket sales in those events, whereas actually if we had the retractable seating, they would still be selling every second seat, and actually then we still have the comfort issues that are stopping people to come. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of more of a comfort there in terms of how that is.
Thank you. Councillor Doody, reply.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to mention about that our cinemas are starting to really revamp up again now, and it's important that we give them all the support we can possibly can, because it's important that we keep our community in our area.
Thank you. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
So now, Jim, your wellbeing, health and safety report, 555 to 566.
I'll take the report as read. The only thing to note probably is there was a fatality if somebody had been using our park for running recreation purposes and passed away in a toilet block. So it does turn up in the statistics here, but there's nothing that we could do. It's just unfortunate for that person and their family.
Thank you. Any questions of Jim? Someone prepared to move? Councillor Ward, seconded. Councillor Bryan. Any discussion? Put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. We now come to a series of minutes that 11.1 to 11.3 be received. Thanks, Councillor Mealings. Seconded, Councillor Stewart. Would you like to highlight something?
At CNR, I did indicate, I missed that meeting, and I did indicate well in advance of the meeting that I did put in my apologies, but it's not recorded on the meeting for the 14th of December.
So perhaps it's something Adrian could follow up. Yes. Yeah, fix it. It'd be fixed at the CNR meeting, but it's good for you to note that, yeah. Adrian, if we could just pass
I just looked at that and I was not AWOL.
That's all right.
So,
no worries. I appropriately recorded. So in moving that, seconded, I'll put those minutes. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Then Community Board minutes 12.1, 12.4. Thanks, Councillor Becky. Moving that, seconded, Councillor Williams. Do you wish to speak to those? Nothing to highlight in those board reports. So I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Now, Jared, we just indicated around the memo to Council re the Capital Works Program Review, whether we would do that today. How long do you think the presentation would take?
I think it would need at least 10 minutes.
Well, why don't we get through, do you mind if we get through the other items first? Then we could come to that, because the memo doesn't actually resolve anything, it's just approving it. it's going to be a conversation with elected members. So maybe I get through those first. We could have a short break and then come to that. Would that be all right? Okay. Yes, we'll do that before we go in PX. So if I just move my diary, 631 to 635, moved by Neville, seconded by Joan. Any discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Council portfolio update. So Jim's going to make sure we keep to up to 3 minutes because we've got a bit to get through still. So just iwi relationships. I met with Te Māori and Māori Tau and Mayor Leanne a couple of weeks ago. She just obviously explained Communities for Local Democracy's position with regards to Three Waters. There was some commentary out pre-Christmas that I think was perhaps a little misunderstanding what the position was. We're going to have a forum with mayors and iwi in a couple of weeks here to explain our position further. We've got Mahi Tahi next week, but apart from that, I've got nothing else to report at this point. Any questions? Greater Christchurch Partnership, there's nothing really to report on. We had our meeting pre-Christmas. I think we've reported back since then. We haven't had a meeting for the year, but there's obviously the spatial planning work underway. There was quite a discussion at our last meeting around the connected up work around transport and some of the we think we just need to keep together. ECAN in the city were wanting to go and talk to the minister, and we said it would be very good if we could make sure that it's a connected conversation. So that's really where the last item I can recall to update on. Nikki or Neville, is there anything you want to add? Any questions? Canterbury Water Management Strategy, Sandra?
Thank you. The Water Zone Committee met yesterday and some interesting stuff emerged. You'll be aware of the Ashley Rakahuri Braided River Revival program, which is a major ECAN project. Several Zone Committee members were critical, really, of the revival and the piecemeal projects that ECAN, there is a plan that we were all given with bits here and there, and some of it is the recreation that involved has a plan which is in replanting, which has come out of the felling of the trees. There's shingle extraction issues, bird nesting, flood management, and the question being a braided river revival, reviving what to achieve what? And there was silence. And this came from several zone members saying, so what is the whole revival meant to achieve? Where is the vision for this river system? What do we want, what is wanted to achieve over 25, 50, perhaps 200 years? Using Tūhaitara Trust's type of approach, and there was nothing. So there is a new, well, we're going to get a presentation from a new ECAN staffer who has been taken on board to advance this revival program. And, you know, seriously, where is this heading? What is the vision for this river? Who knows? So Zone Committee members welcomed having a talk initially to the person that's in charge of the revival, wherever that's meant to go. So further discussion too on the Zone Committee action plan budget. 50,000 has been allocated for the year which ends in June. And the Zone Committee is still finalising projects. Got 4 on board that need a bit more budget information, totalling 27,000 of the 50,000, and that's Taranaki Stream, some contribution into inanga planting to encourage more whitebait spawning, Sefton Softwood Creek monitoring, that's a catchment project with property owners, and Carolyn Lathan is leading a bit of that. The Northbrook Trail.
Sandra, you're going to have to cut the
right.
chase.
Well,
You've got 15
I'll
seconds.
finish that one.
Yep.
You may be aware we held...
No, it's 3 minutes, so you might just want to circulate your points by email. We just,
Yep, can do.
Okay, thank you. International Relationships, Deputy Mayor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just trying to work out how I'm going to get this into 3 minutes, but the meeting that we're going to have is on the 28th, so we've got nothing at the moment. I'm not sure I can stretch it any further than that.
Thank you. Regen, Councillor Blakey.
A lot to report. I was away for 20 days and surprise, the world kept turning without me, I discovered when I got back. But report on Aqualand, going great guns down at the lake. Their peak day hit 450 people one day over the summer. Any hot to warm day, they're getting between 250 and 300, and even on a poor day, they're getting around 75, 80. So they're very happy. It's all going very well. There's only one resident left there who's grumpy about them. All the others have come on board and are now talking to them and totally happy. The only problem they've got is the bird life pooping on the thing when they've gone home. The good news about that is they only do it on the climb out beds pretty much, and they have solved the problem. There's 4 swans who are the main perpetrators. There's a whole lot of geese, and they have fixed the geese problem by buying 2 of those blow-up crocodiles that you put in a swimming pool, and the geese have buggered off and haven't come near the place since the crocodile. But the swan has been photographed standing on one of the crocodiles. That is my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Blakey. Excellent. Climate change, sustainability, Councillor Mealings.
Tough act to follow. Damn. Look, not a lot has happened in the climate change and sustainability space over the holidays, but that's kind of, I guess, what I'm going to report on. So as you guys would be aware, we had a couple key staff leave at the end of last year, which kind of paused momentum on progressing to the next stage of our sustainability strategy implementation. And certainly put a pause on us taking it out into the community. So, but also what happened at the tail end of 2021 was the merging of the policy and strategy unit and the business incentives unit, which has now formed a new strategy and business unit, which is going to be led by Simon Hart. That took place mid-December, just before we all took off for Christmas. That unit is going to be developing and implementing key council strategies that go across all of our silos, if you will, beyond service delivery, and also those into the community and relating to sustainability and climate change. So that's the new unit that will be looking after this. With that new unit, the role of lead advisor of sustainable development has been established with the purpose of leading advice and developing and implementing that those strategies, and the council, that give effect to the UN Sustainable Development Goals that we've adopted in our LTP, and they are looking to start recruitment for that shortly, if I'm not wrong. And as resourcing permits, we're looking to re-energize and extend the sustainability practices and take it out into the community as per the direction that we set in our LTP. And hopefully we'll get the sustainability champions and the steering group and that back up and running. Simon Hart's going to be the unit manager, overseen by Simon Markham, who will keep a keen interest. And other than that, well, I'll just be watching to see what the government gets up to and when it unveils its national emissions reduction and climate change adaptation plans. So not nearly as exciting as alligators and swans, but there it is.
Thanks, Nikki. Any questions? Just at the regional level of climate change, the steering group met last week, which I chair. The climate change risk assessment report will be released shortly, and there'll be a briefing for us as councillors. Also on the 18th of March, we're running these regular councillor workshops. Professor Don Hine is going to be invited to come on. I'm sorry, I can't remember what his particular area is, but apparently he's very good, so it's just 2 updates from that from last week. Business promotion in town centres, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. With the Omicron happening, unfortunately, Rangiora Promotions have decided to cancel Eats and Beats on March the 8th. What's happening with Carpool? Has that been cancelled as well? You're not sure? Yeah.
Deciding the next week.
Okay, that's fine. So that's been cancelled till next year. EV chargers, Meridian are hoping to install Woodend and Oxford in March, April this year. E-scooters are working very well. An update in March will come to council. Good Street is on track for construction to start in May this year, just in the off-season to get that all prettied up. And New Zealand Motor Association in Kaipoi is starting construction, but some variations are still to be processed. But in the meantime, that may do some delays, but in the meantime, they're started, and oh, cool, and are planned for a March, or maybe a little later March opening, but they're underway, so that's very good news. So that's me.
Thanks, Joan. Any questions of Joan? Thank you. So I've got no questions, understanding orders. There's no urgent general business. Before we go on PX, we'll come back to the memo, but we've been going for a bit now. I think 10 minutes break would be welcomed. So, Gia, if we can prepare to do your memo and related presentation about 4:30, and then we'll go into PX thereafter. All right? Thank you. So have a break, everyone.
for tomorrow. And to give you an idea of some of the work we've been doing this year on our capital works program, and some of the things that we're trying to achieve in that. So it's really just giving you an overview of the revised assessment approach. We want to give you some assurance that we've tried to size the capital works program to our resourcing to show that we've got the capacity to deliver what we've got in the draft annual plan. And this is probably something you've heard Jim talking about, and it's certainly something that Jim's been looking for us to integrate into all of our work as more of the linkages to community outcomes with everything we do. So this spreadsheet actually goes a step in that direction, trying to show you where our capital work align with those, and tries to quantify that, but I'll go into that. Okay, so the spreadsheets that you've only just got there, I'll go into each of these details in there. So this is just a bit of an idea to show you what you'll see in those spreadsheets. So for every capital works project, there's a whole series of columns, and up at the top you'll see each of these things. So the idea of this is to just give you an idea that we're looking at those, what have we got. So just as an example here in the water, the drivers for that, if you look at the Waikuku UV installation, the big driver for that is the statutory requirement, whereas some of those other projects that you see listed there under statutory, it's only C, because the main drivers are actually growth or potentially level of service. So we're trying to just give you an idea of why it is, what's the reasoning behind those capital works. And the idea is we just used a relatively coarse grading, A, B and C, must do, should do or could do, just so that when the asset managers were going through, they had an idea of how they would assign whether it was an A, B or a C for that priority. So hopefully this is making sense.
Well, it's essentially what we asked for, Jared.
It is, that's correct.
In German, you've worked on this, it was after, I think, UNR briefings.
Audit and Risk Committee briefing.
Yeah, Audit and Risk Committee, yeah. Can you use your mic, Nick?
Okay, so those priority colours, they relate to that staff assessment column. So, yeah.
Yes, but you see, like in the district water on the top line,
yeah.
A is green,
yeah.
But B should be blue and C should be yellow.
So,
but yet you've got B yellow and C red instead.
Yeah, so we've used... Thanks.
It's the test for those of us.
No. So if you go to the staff assessment urgency, we've actually used that colour coding, but you can't see it on this one. But you're quite right. When we go to drivers, we should actually see where it says priority. We should be clear that that's the staff assessment rather than the drivers. So we have used different colour, and we should probably tidy that up for future. Yeah, it's confusing. Yeah. Yes.
I can't read it on here, it's too small, and I can't read it up there. I just wonder, I always relate to paper.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we'll give, if you like, we can give you some A3s before you go today. So you can have a look at them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Even at A3, they will be a bit big. We'll do that before you finish today. Because they'll actually be helpful for you over the next couple of days to understand. Yep. Okay. And also that might help answer the first question too, Nikki, when you're seeing a whole sheet. But we should have used the same colours. I agree. Yeah.
So the priority letter.
Yeah.
Is the same A, B, C, D, but the colours, the staff colours versus the whatever the.
So the column that says staff assessment, if you can see my dot, we've used that colour for this column, but you're right, we've used a different colour coding here.
Well, the other option is to just say, what we can't do, put in good stuff.
Yep, we'll get on to that, we definitely do that,
Yeah,
yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Maybe if we let Jared get on and present.
Yep.
So, no, I'm not being,
No.
but it's just that we've still got quite a bit of the agenda to go, so
Yep.
let's keep moving.
Okay, so then we've got another section on these tables that talks, just to give you an idea of what are the stakeholder expectations for each of those projects. So for every single one of those, again, every line item, you've got that information there. What's our current progress and what's the requirement for external funding? And that'll, for example, if it's something that's got Waka Kotahi funding, whether that's a requirement, or also the shovel-ready work. So it helps you understand that from a priority point of view. Now that has not been graded, so that's just purely information for you, but it's definitely been a consideration in the staff assessment in terms of giving it that ranking.
So of the shovel-ready projects,
They're all A because of that. Yep. So that's, I've sort of talked a little bit ahead of this before we got to it, and that's where we've got that that colour key that you referred to, Councillor Mealings. So we've effectively gone through and manually prioritised those, or when I say we, it's not me, it's the people sitting in the back here and Don who've done it all. Yeah, so that's been gone through, but there's been quite a bit of, we've been through quite a few sort of workshops to develop this and try and get consistency, not only actually within UNR but also in green spaces as well. Yep. Yes, yes.
Surely they will be on our
yes, correct.
So why would they want extra
That's, Kelly, did you want to talk to that? Because the idea of this is to introduce the whole overview. Probably those sorts of questions should be for tomorrow, but happy to take it. I think we'll just best to leave.
To the big picture.
Yeah, I
and
think
the
so.
concept behind it, and we can drill into it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, just to give you an overview of what these sheets are like, and hopefully you can have a look at them tonight. So this is the piece that is starting to go in a direction that our chief executive is looking for us to do, and we've been working to try and basically do an assessment here of, in terms of the well-beings, what value is each of these projects adding and giving it a weighting. So on a project-by-project basis, you can look at it and go, okay, that's 20% economic benefit, 20% social. I'm sure you won't agree with the assessment that's been done, but it's a start. But what it also does is you can then look across all of your capital works program and get an idea of how much money is being put into each of those well-beings. And ultimately, this work would further give us much better alignment with the community outcomes. So this is one of the things that at this point is being really put in there as displaying benefits. But by the time we've advanced this, I expect next year this will become much more of a driver of our capital works program, but it's one of these things that takes a bit of time to implement. So.
What this does is give you an idea of the overall balance of your program. If you're interested in safety or social issues, environmental issues, then you can see, well, what are the projects and how are they rating against those dimensions? When you line it up with statutory and those other factors, then you can make a call as to what you might want to put ahead of something else. And it's entirely possible to start there and say, well, we think we need to shift the dial, put a third more into, say, environmental programs, or whether it's coming from roading or transport or libraries, you would get a sense of that because, and this is a tool that you developed years ago, and we developed a model so it allowed any project, a new project, to come and be assessed against that. You'd say, well, strategically it's not heading in the right direction. Do we have to do it by law? No. Why would we want to do it? So it brings another lens, because otherwise the well-being just sit there and they're kind of a qualitative thing, but they're not linked into your decision making.
Thanks, Jim. So the other thing we've done, and this will answer one of the other questions that came, is we have actually quantified the workload and the staff that are available for capital work. So this is not all of the staff in PDU. There's still a whole pile of other work that's non-capital work related. But we've actually gone through a process to quantify the amount of work there is and trying to align that with our staff resources. Now, we do have, we've actually got not a bad match here. What we are showing is that our program as it currently stands is slightly ambitious for our current staff resources, and we've taken a fairly conservative approach there. So we've allowed some, you'll see there's contingency built into this. So, and this is detailed in the memo that you've got on the agenda if you want to have a better look at it. But we have made some allowance. So what we're saying is, if you sort of look here, we're working out that you need about 15 people to deliver that work with contingency in, and we've got about 13. We have staff coming and going. We know we have had resignations and new recruitment, but we've taken a pretty, again, a fairly conservative approach there, not assuming that we're going to be able to fill vacancies. So if we ended up in a position where we were able to fill a couple of extra vacancies, we'll have capacity to deliver that. If not, we've actually got, it's not actually too much to be able to put out to get consultants to help us deliver that. But what it does also mean is if you ended up through the next couple of days taking some of those capital works out of the program, we're not going to end up without work to do. So there's still, you know, we do actually you do have the ability to remove some of those projects if you wish to. And I think this is probably the first time we've presented you this kind of information in this way, where you actually can make those decisions being conscious of what that effect will have on resourcing. So we're basically saying we've got enough to deliver for the green space program. Again, roading most likely, and then there is some slight under-resourcing of the three waters. So as I said, we can either defer those works, or we can bring in some extra resource from consultants. The other thing here on the right-hand side of this, and again you'll see this in the memo, we've done a sort of a top-down assessment. We're actually aiming for about a $40 million program this year, and if you compare that to the current year and the previous year, you can see it as a step down. So we've actually, that's actually a very helpful way to get a feel for, is it manageable? How many dollars have we spent over the last few years and managed to deliver? And so this is not what was budgeted, this is what was delivered. And we're, it is a smaller program, so we're not, so that gives us a bit of confidence that it's a realistic program that we're putting in front of you tomorrow and the next day. So that's pretty much the end of the presentation.
A couple of quick questions, because we're going to have plenty of time to go through this. Well, hopefully we'll have time to go through it tomorrow. Next couple of days. Neville?
Mine is...
Yep.
You've read what we asked for very, very well, and can I commend Jim, yourselves, and everybody that's been involved with it, because this is exactly what we need to match up and make some realistic decisions around what we have in front of us.
Okay. I don't think there's any further comment needs to be made at this point. Thank you for that heads up. That's really good. Oh, Jim, did you want to add something? No? I know you've got SEG, so you okay? You're okay. So I'll just, with that, we're now going to move, thanks Jared and team, we're now going to move into public excluded. Can I have someone for the reasons? Moved by Councillor Blakey, seconded by Councillor Doody. I'll put that, all those in favour please say aye. contrary, declare that carried. So we'll just wait for Adrian to do her thing. And you'll get time to get into the PX.